In Melbourne town, where the suits all grind, there's a lawyer with a vision, one of a kind. He's the Aussie Overlaw'd. He'll fight for your rights, and he's got his own channel shining bright. From the courtroom to the web, he's got it all, sharing legal knowledge, answering the call. He breaks it down in a language we all understand. The Aussie Overlaw'd taking a stand. With his Aussie charm and his legal know-how, he's a hero we need, showing us how. He fights for justice, no case too tough. The Aussie Overlaw'd, he's more than enough. He's more than enough. In Melbourne town, where the suits all grind, there's a lawyer with a vision, one of a kind. He's the Aussie Overlaw'd. He'll fight for your rights, and he's got his own channel shining bright. From the courtroom to the web, he's got it all, sharing legal knowledge, answering the call. He breaks it down in a language we all understand. The Aussie Overlaw'd taking a stand. With his Aussie charm and his legal know-how, he's a hero we need, showing us how. He fights for justice, no case too tough. The Aussie Overlaw'd, he's more than enough.
Chan, recalculate the new thruster data and relay it to Blue Oyster called immediately instancia.
Okay, roger that, Doctor. Fuck!
What's wrong?
Seriously, auto-updating now? General, I won't be able to calculate the right data for the satellite for 49 minutes.
How long till impact?
11 minutes and 44 seconds.
Fuck Microsoft!
Okay.
Fuck!
All right.
And that pretty much describes my afternoon. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and hello everybody, and welcome to Be Advised. I have no idea how, what, why, when, where, what the issue is, but anytime I create a stream in either Streamlabs or OBS and schedule it, for some reason I get an error back when I try and connect to it and go streaming. So for the preceding future, I'm just going to go live at the appointed time, okay? I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to put out whatever, but I can't keep doing this because I'm losing viewers anyway, because all of a sudden they go to the wrong video, and that seems to piss a few people off. So, buy a MacBook Pro, still life? No. Just no. I would go to Linux before I touch anything Apple. Never gonna happen. What's that? Meanwhile, all systems down. Yep. Microsoft needs to get their shit together. Yep. Can you show my homework like a proud dad? Nope. Because I've got something special planned for that. Oh, don't you worry. It's coming. I just didn't get the opportunity to finish it today. So, but no, both you and Mighty are getting a special present as a result of that. But anyway. So, today, guys, it's going to be a fairly standard show, fairly slow, fairly laid back. I was going to look at a segment that Fox News put out about the 5 most infuriating segments that happened at the national conference. we'll see how we go with that. We've got a few like little tidbits here or there. We've got a real estate developer who tried to kill his wife and all the different ways that he tried to do it. Time for a 2-week vacation. It kind of feels like that, if I'm honest, Pinking, sorry. A family is suing police after their dog was shot. And we've got a bit of an update in the Karen Reed stuff, just because I know that I'm a few days behind, but there's a few documents that I hadn't looked at, and someone specifically said that they don't actually look at those, they wait for me to read them to them. So, oh, you're going on one today? Oh, congratulations. Excellent. Very happy to hear that. Hopefully you can rest, recharge, and return refreshed. Oh, and a 12-year-old's been charged for murder. So we're going to get stuck into that. Alright, a Missouri woman who served 43 years in prison is free after her murder conviction was overturned. But guess what? The Attorney General didn't want to let her out. The Court of Appeals overturned her conviction, and they still tried to keep her in. Oh, it's completely paid. Congratulations. Stocked up on 130 hours of paid time off to do it. Fantastic. I need to know where to find one of those boomerangs. Pretty sure he made it himself. Most recent article I found on the deputy here in Springfield, Illinois. Oh. Okay. Alright. A woman whose murder conviction was overturned after she served 43 years of a life sentence was released on Friday, despite attempts in the last month by Missouri's Attorney General to keep her behind bars. Sandra Hem, 64, left a prison in Chillicothe? Doesn't matter. Hours after a judge threatened to hold the Attorney General's office in contempt if they continued to fight against her release. She was reunited with her family at a nearby park where she hugged her sister, daughter, and her granddaughter. You were just a baby when your mum sent me a picture of you, she said. You look just like your mama when you were that little, and you still look like her. Her granddaughter laughed and said, I get that a lot. Hem had been the longest-held, wrongly incarcerated woman in the United States, according to a legal team at the Innocence Project. The judge originally ruled on June 14 that her attorneys had established clear and convincing evidence of actual innocence and overturned her conviction. Holy shitballs. 19th. Over a month. 34 days. They decided it'd be a good idea to try and keep her behind bars. That's not okay. You going to see Fluffy tonight? Oh, screw you. Chillicothe. Thank you. And they still wouldn't let her out. That's effed. Yes. She's been in there that long not knowing she didn't do it? Yep. Alright. Republican Attorney General Andrew Bailey fought her release in the courts. It was too easy to convict an innocent person and way harder than it should have been to get her out, even to the point of the court orders being ignored, said her attorney Sean O'Brien, and it shouldn't be this hard to free an innocent person. During a court hearing on Friday, Judge Ryan Horseman said that if Hem wasn't released within hours, Bailey himself would have to appear in court Tuesday morning. He threatened to hold the Attorney General's office in contempt. He also scolded Bailey's office for calling the warden and telling prison officials not to release Hem after he ordered her to be freed on her own recognizance. I would suggest that you never do that, he said, adding, to call someone and tell them to disregard a court order is wrong. There's a little thing called the separation of powers. Given that you're the Attorney General, that's part of the, well, technically part of the, we'll call it the executive branch is what we call it here. You're not supposed to interfere with court orders, dipshit. She spent my whole lifetime in prison. Yep. Hem declined to address reporters when she was released. O'Brien said she was going straight to the side of her father, who was hospitalized with kidney failure and recently moved into palliative care. This has been a long time coming, he said of her release. O'Brien said previously that delays had caused the family irreparable harm and emotional distress. There's still struggles ahead. She's going to need help, he said, noting she won't be eligible for Social Security because she was incarcerated for so long. hang on, how old they say she was? Like 64. She's a 64-year-old woman. She's not going to be eligible for Social Security. She's not going to be eligible for any cushy jobs. This poor woman is going to be mooching off of her family now. But I tell you what, I'd be making a claim against the Attorney General's office for that extra month that you were incarcerated. Got that. She's going to need help. Over the last month, a circuit judge, an appellate court, and the Missouri Supreme Court all agreed that Hem should be released, but she was still behind bars, leaving her lawyers and legal experts puzzled. I've never seen it, said Michael Wolff, a former Missouri Supreme Court judge and professor and dean emeritus at the St. Louis University Law School. Once the courts have spoken, the court should be obeyed. The lone hold-up to freedom came from the Attorney General, who filed court motions seeking to force her to serve additional years for decades-old prison assault cases. I'm sorry, what? There's specific sentencing guidelines that say that any cases, like any sentences like that, need to be served concurrently anyway. Why exactly are you trying to tack it on decades after the fact? What a dipshit. The warden at the correctional center initially declined to let him go based on Bailey's actions. Horstman ruled on June 14 that the totality of the evidence supporting a finding of actual innocence. A state appeals court ruled on July 8 that Hem should be set free while it continued to review the case. Oh, okay, so never mind. So it was because the Attorney General appealed the June 14, so she can't make any sort of claim then. It'll just depend when the Supreme Court made the ruling in her favor. On July 9, Horstman ruled Hem should be released to go home with her sister. Missouri Supreme Court ruled on Thursday. They declined to undo the lower court ruling that allowed her to be released on her own recognizance and placed with her sister and brother-in-law. Damn, she can't even make a claim against the Attorney General's office just because they were abusing the process. Bailey, a Republican facing opposition in the August 9 primary election, responded with another request late on Thursday asking the circuit court to reconsider. Hem was serving a life sentence at the correctional facility for the 1980 stabbing of library worker Patricia Jeschke in St. Joseph, Missouri. Hem's immediate freedom was complicated by sentences she received for crimes committed while behind bars. She received a 10-year sentence in 1996 for attacking a prison worker with a razor blade, damn, and a 2-year sentence in 1984 for offering to commit violence. So she committed petty assault. Okay. Grandkids are saying screen's blurry on the TV. Don't know why. I'm going out at 10,000 kbps, so not a clue. Maybe if they're using the YouTube app, it's set to a lower resolution. Answer my question as to what grounds they were trying to hold her in for. Yeah, they wanted to hold her in jail because she hit people in jail when she should never have been there. Yes. Doesn't necessarily excuse the fact that she did it, but you know, it's like there, but for the grace of God, she wouldn't have been in the situation anyway. Fine on the phone, fine on the laptop. Okay. Her attorneys countered that keeping her incarcerated any longer would be a draconian outcome. Some legal experts agreed. Peter Joy, a law professor at the Washington University of Law in St. Louis, said, the effort to keep her in prison was a shock to the conscience of any decent human being, since evidence strongly suggested that she didn't commit the crime. Bailey's office did not immediately respond to messages seeking comment on Friday. Bailey, who was appointed Attorney General after Eric Schmidt was elected in the U.S. Senate in 2022, has a history of opposing overturning convictions, even when local prosecutors cite evidence of actual innocence. This is the guy that actually opposes it when even the integrity unit in the prosecutor's department says, no, we screwed up here, this is an innocent person. And he's like, no, don't care, they're staying behind bars. Horstman, after an extensive review, concluded in June that Hem was heavily sedated and in a malleable mental state when investigators repeatedly questioned her in a psychiatric hospital after the killing. Oh, you're kidding me. That's what her attorneys described her ultimate confession as often monosyllabic, syllabic, oh, god damn it. She was speaking in single syllables to leading questions rather than a confession, so no evidence actually linked her to the crime, the trial prosecutor said. The St. Joseph Police Department, meanwhile, ignored evidence pointing to Michael Holman, a fellow officer who died in 2015, and the prosecution wasn't told about FBI results that could have cleared him, so it was never disclosed before her trial, as a judge found. Evidence presented to Horstman showed that Holman's pickup truck was seen outside the apartment, and he tried to use her credit card and that her earrings were found in his home. Horstman said in his report he called him the victim of manifest injustice. That's some messed up shit. That really is. And the fact that you've got people still fighting for a woman like that to be in jail is just disturbing. Also, hang on. I just realized. There we go. I completely forgot that I owe dog camp. Okay, shall I have to check my X to see what I made for Hayden? You know what? Screw it. I'll show it for those that haven't seen it. And then you can all just wait with bated breath as to my response. I want to do unspeakable things to your ass.
That's terrible.
You seem kind of psyched.
No, I'm bummed.
That's about all I'm gonna. Well, I mean, that was all that I had to show because let's face it, you know, SNL is very strike heavy. So, how's the weather over the ditch? It sucks. It's been rainy and cold all day. It is just, it's not worth it. Just a few bad cops myth busted. Yeah, well, we're gonna get to that. Okay, so a bomb threat, a lawsuit, and call Raffi inside a nasty Phoenix lawyer feud. This is quite funny. It's a tale of dueling billboards between a pair of ambulance chasers, in my opinion. Meaties is worse. Oh, I know. I want to get some things off my chest right now. On the 13th episode of his Call Gil Show podcast, Gil Negrete was about to go nuclear. To this point, everything about the podcast had been a warm-up for the former personal injury lawyer. He spent the first episode explaining the suspension of his law license and how he went from slapping his face on billboards and buses to being unable to practice. With each subsequent episode, he had loosened up, spilling secrets and gossip about the Valley's community of personal injury lawyers. And he picked up the 13th episode to take down one of the biggest of them all. Negrete was going after billboard staple Brandon Raffi. Jerry. Now the gloves come off, he said. You got me, Brandon? The gloves are coming off, my guy. At issue was a lawsuit filed by Raffi that accused Negrete of defamation and much more. It claimed that he was behind an anonymous gossip Instagram account that had damaged Raffi's reputation. It asserted that Negrete had organised a home invasion at Raffi's residence, and the most egregious to Negrete, it accused him of calling a fake bomb threat to Raffi's office. All of it, Negrete told his listeners, is bullshit. He would fight the suit in court, of course, but that it would take time. Until then, Negrete would use his podcast to make Raffi pay. That's not exactly a great way to go about it. Over the next two episodes, titled Negrete v. Raffi and Negrete v. Raffi 2, Negrete shared all the dirt that he had on Raffi, one of the Valley's most prominent personal injury attorneys. And ambulance chasers, I swear to God. Negrete lambasted Raffi's suit as frivolous, dissecting its shortcomings and unearthing what he said was exonerating evidence that the suit ignored. He brought up a federal employment suit filed against Raffi's law firm, Raffi Law Group, by a former employee. And he didn't stop there. He said that Raffi is a punk-ass bitch with no trial experience whose firm has poor reviews on online review sites. He also accused Raffi of being sensitive about his well-to-do upbringing and rubbing elbows with GOP extremists Carrie Lake and Abe Hamada. Once they'd been friends, Negrete said, but no longer. Raffi can be on top of the world now, billboards on every corner, a catchy Call Raffi jingle on the radio, but he decided to fuck with the wrong one. That one is Negrete, a non-practicing lawyer with a string of ethical and legal sanctions on his record, who recently wrapped up a 15-month suspension. In a statement to the Phoenix New Times, Raiz Muhammad, the attorney representing the Raffi Law Group in the case, said that the firm is determined on addressing Mr. Negrete's non-stop harassment, defamation, and deliberate dissemination of false information. The statement did not address most of the 16 questions that the Times had sent the firm. Negrete, however, was eager to unpack their feud in an interview. Over 80 minutes, Negrete answered questions about his career indiscretions and recapped his falling out with Raffi, the highly visible attorney Negrete said he'd once thought of as a brother. Whatever you want to know, I'm going to tell you. Until recently, their feud simmered under the surface. Now it's out in the open, and Negrete is doubling down. Bomb. I gotta get that as a friggin' I need to have that as a audio thing. I don't know why I don't. Also, why did I have... What was... Oh, God, what was that? What button was that? Have I had a voice changer on this entire time and no one told me? Damn it, Scarlett, I said stop pressing buttons. Years before Raffi accused Negreed of making a bomb threat, their relationship began to sour. Negreed said the two first met in 2014 before Raffi opened the Raffi Law Group. They bonded over a love of hip-hop and Phoenix, sat together at Suns games and vacationing together in California. When Raffi Law Group's business exploded, Raffi routinely referred cases to Negreed's practice. Then in 22, Negreed said Raffi cut him off. At issue was one client representing what Raffi said was only $5,000 in business, who signed with Raffi's firm before switching to Negreed's later that same day. Through a subordinate, Raffi demanded Negreed send the client back to him. Negreed said he tried to persuade her, but she did not want Raffi's firm to handle the case. After that, Negreed said the Raffi Law Group stopped sending cases his way. Ooh, fight, fight, fight. Negreed said he objected to how the younger lawyers at Raffi's Law Group talked down to him. He'd been scolded like I was a kid, he said, who was 47, and I'm not a little kid. The statement from the law group attorneys did not address the New Times' question about Raffi's relationship with Negreed before the lawsuit between them. Over the next 2 years, Negreed said he and Raffi maintained a cordial relationship, punctuated by periodic tiffs. Negreed hired lawyers away from Raffi Law Group, someone close to Negreed, one of many people he identified as public enemy number one, a title for which there apparently was a multi-way tie, gossiped to Raffi about him. But the bomb threat allegation kicked the feud into high gear. The threat did happen. On February 9 of this year, a bomb threat was made at the offices of Raffi Law Group. As a horde of police responded and poured into the building, someone was outside taking photos. These photos were shared on the Instagram account at Lawyer Files, an attorney gossip account with more than 62,000 followers that has since been set to private. The account claimed erroneously that police were raiding the law firm and Raffi Law Group's attorneys had been drinking. Raffi Law Group wasn't a new target. In September 23, they had authored a long post criticizing Raffi as inexperienced and bankrolled by his father. I'm just putting it out there. Yeah, it sounds like a bitch fight. Yeah. And he gave back his friendship bracelet they got together. Oh, no. 5 days after the bomb threat, an attorney filed a defamation suit on behalf of Raffi and RGL, claiming the posts were defamatory and specifically designed to inflict maximum reputational harm. The complaint was also claimed that whoever was behind the account was responsible for the bomb threat and arranged a home invasion at Raffi's residence 2 weeks earlier on January 27. But without an identifiable defendant to serve, the complaint sat in the court system until late May. That's when Muhammad amended the suit to name Negreed as the defendant. It was Negreed behind the Instagram account and the suit now claimed, and that Negreed had called in the bomb threat and organised the home invasion. That's some pretty serious friggin' allegations. Negreed was served with the suit on June 18. A week later, he responded on his podcast. This is a public lawsuit that you filed against me, and you're saying that I called in a bomb threat to your office, you punk-ass bitch. On the podcast, he said the suit had several deficiencies. The Lawyer Files posts might have sounded like him. It matches my opinion for sure, he said, but it provides no documentation connecting Negreed to the account. The court has cleared Muhammad to subpoena Instagram to uncover its owner, but it's unclear if any subpoena has been issued. The suit's amended complaint makes no mention of it, and Muhammad did not answer a question from the New Times about it. Negreed said whatever the subpoena uncovers won't be him. He said, today it's not me, maybe it'll be tomorrow, though. Asked to clarify, Negreed said tongue-in-cheek that he noted that he might buy the account to further antagonise Raffi. Also absent from the complaint was any evidence connecting Negreed to the home invasion or the bomb threat. The complaint cited no police incident report numbers or for either, though there is evidence that both happened. Negreed claimed on his podcast, I was going to say bombcast then. Oh, God. That there were no calls for service of Raffi's Arcadia home on or around the date of the supposed home invasion. Police records show otherwise. There were no calls for service from Raffi's residence on the date the lawsuit gave for the home invasion, but there were 3 on January 28. One was labelled as a burglary alarm, and 2 subsequent calls were categorised as requests for an estimated time of arrival for police. It's not clear if emergency personnel responded to Raffi's residence, and no incident reports were filed regarding the event. Muhammad's statement did not address the question about the event. Speaking to the New Times, Negrit said he requested the same police records that the New Times found, but was told that there weren't any. I don't mean to mislead, he said. If there was a report, don't take it as I didn't tell anybody. I was just not told. Still, as Negrit noted, nothing about those calls connects him to the incident. As for the bomb threat, which was submitted through a chat function on RGL's website, police records identify explicitly someone other than Negrit as the culprit. Rafi's lawsuit claims that Negrit, either acting alone or in concert with others, made a false report to police by threatening to bomb the Phoenix office. However, according to a police incident report, the firm, particularly Letitia Ulibari, an employee listed as the complainant on the report, knew that to be false not long after the threat was made. The day of the threat, police traced its origins to a computer at a Maryvale Preparatory Academy. Police informed Ulibari of that information later that day, and she told the police she believed that it was a student and that the threat was not likely credible, according to the incident report. Hell, that's my fury like a lover scorned. The law group was notified of the findings and did not wish to pursue the matter further for prosecution. Yet Rafi's amended complaint, filed the 30th of May, more than 3 months after police closed the bomb threat case, repeated the claim that Negrit was responsible despite the fact that police are determined otherwise. The statement provided to New Times by Muhammad did not address the questions. Wait, what? You see, Joy Bahar asked why wasn't a 20-year-old white male reported for buying 50 rounds of ammo. This isn't even immature, this is criminal, this is a frivolous police report. It also, he said, constitute a violation of Rule 11 of the Arizona Rules of Civil Procedure, which requires factual contentions to have evidentiary support. I'm going to the state bar, he said on this podcast. I'm putting it on record. I'm not going to rest until this man has some sort of punishment coming to him for the shit that he pulled on me and my family. In the meantime, he went on the attack. How much further is this? Oh, God, this is... It's two lawyers having a bitch fight. Can we just say that and move on? Sounds like someone's butthurt. Yeah. This is just stupid. Like, I can't even take this seriously. Not even sure I want to be perfectly honest. All right. Wait, where am I? Oh, hang on. How did I have that turned off? Oh, come on. Alright, guess we're just going to go back to this one.
I think there were some sort of Easter eggs of white nationalism in the speech.
These two men are both elderly. Donald Trump is an elderly man who, for whatever reason, was given 9 seconds to take a iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. Weird situation. We'll figure that out one day. But his survival of that and bouncing right back and going right to his convention is being conveyed in the media world as a sign of strength. This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should he be fine in a couple of days? Doesn't that convey exactly the same thing?
Fuck no! He has a cold and constantly falls down the stairs. And you're saying that should be the same as, oh, dude got shot and then immediately went to the Republican convention?
That he's strong enough, older than Trump, to have gotten something that used to really be fatal to people his age. So if he does fine out of it and comes back and is able to do rallies, isn't that exactly the same?
Mr. Vance then was able to go and start another venture capital firm with, surprise, yet more help from Peter Thiel. Like Mr. Thiel, who has named his companies after things in the Lord.
Oh, I heard about this. Since when did naming shit after Lord of the Rings become a problem? And when did that become something for far right? I mean, yeah, sure, Tolkien himself was fairly conservative. He was Christian, he was whatever else, and he had some fairly strong views on certain things. But just because you name your company after something out of a fantasy novel, apparently that makes you fairly right-wing, and that's a problem. Like,
Lord of the Rings series of J.R.R. Tolkien books. Lord of the Rings is a sort of favorite cosmos for naming things and cultural references for a lot of far-right and alt-right figures, both in Europe and the United States. Peter Thiel names all these things after Tolkien figures and places, like his company Palantir, for example.
See, I don't know what his company is, but if it's what I think it is, knowing Lord of the Rings, I think, and it's Palantir, but if that's a communications technology company, I think that's a brilliant idea. Is this really what's on the news? Unfortunately, yeah.
Like his mentor, like Peter Thiel, who had given him all his jobs in the world, Mr. Vance also, when he founded his own venture capital firm with help from Peter Thiel, named it after a Lord of the Rings thing. He called it Narya, N-A-R-Y-A, which you can remember because it's Aryan, but you move the N to the front.
What the fuck? Wait, what?
Apparently that word has something to do with elves. Rings thing. He called it Narya.
Literally the name of the Ring of Fire in the Lord of the Rings. You know, Rachel, you can rearrange Santa to spell Satan. Are you, like, do you still have kids in your family that don't get Christmas presents? Like, she does have mad cow disease. This lady has no joy in her life, I can feel it. Well, yeah, have you seen the haircut? Like, holy crap balls.
Narya, which you can remember because it's Aryan, but you move the N to the front. Apparently that word has something to do with elves and rings from the Lord of the Rings series. I don't know.
Clearly, because if you'd actually done your job and did the research, you'd know exactly what that was. Like, oh my god.
Retard.
And she can't even get away with it because she doesn't have any
Mommy milkers.
So she's just making me sit here going, no! Like, seriously. Oh, despite calls on the left and right for the temperature to be dialed down following the assassination attempt on Trump, MSNBC hosts continue making inflammatory remarks during their coverage of the RNC this week. Primetime hosts at the Liberal Network accused candidates of being secret racists and even gave a platform to conspiracy theories, questioning if Trump was actually shot. And I do know that there's what they say, like 52% of Democrat voters believe that he arranged the assassination himself, or alternatively that he wasn't shot. Like, just Alex Wagner, JD Vance is a secret white nationalist despite being married to an Indian woman. MSNBC host Alex Wagner attracted headlines after she claimed that Trump's pick for Vice President JD Vance dropped Easter eggs of white nationalism by saying during the RNC speech that he wanted to be buried in his family plot in Kentucky. Yes, because wanting to be buried with your family is absolutely white nationalist. It's not like there's a whole bunch of mausoleums that belong to people from any number of faiths where families are... Just think the construction of this notion reveals a lot about someone who fundamentally believes in the supremacy of whiteness and masculinity, and it's couched in a sort of halcyon, you know, revisitation of his roots, but it's actually really revealing about what he thinks matters and who America is, and that America is a place for people with his shared Western background. How the hell do you get that from that? Like, that... Trump actually shot, likening Lord of the Rings to racism. Another point this week, MSNBC host Nicole Wallace became visibly frustrated over the way Biden had answered a question from NBC's Lester Holt about the bullseye rhetoric directed at Trump. There was one way to answer that question. It was, Lester, should I use the word bullseye across here? No, but the FBI director told Donald Trump selected. His name is Christopher Wray, and he testified under oath before Congress that the greatest threat to the country is not foreign terrorism, it's domestic violent extremism, Wallace said, growing angry as she spoke. What? Inside that threat, the biggest bucket by far right is right-wing... Oh my god. Watched Hillbilly Elegy last night. It was good. Explains why he wants to be buried there. Okay. Alright, let's go to the family song about the dog. And I'll see what we do from there. Because I that's just like... I don't know why, but I'm very friggin' frustrated right now, and it's kind of thrown me for the loop, if I'm perfectly honest.
To save their dog's life, stopped by the cops and held at gunpoint. KRQE Investigates first showed you that intense traffic stop where at the time the family caught in the crosshairs knew police officers should not act the way they did. Investigative reporter Gabrielle Burkhart shows you how a new lawsuit aims to drive that point home.
There's hurt. There's hurt.
Since William Albrecht and his family were stopped for speeding along 550 in the town of Bernalillo last year, trying to save their dog Stella's life.
She's going to die. She got hit by a car.
They've wanted to share their story.
I just could not believe the treatment that I was getting.
And make a change.
The message is you cannot afford to hire people that abuse the people that are supposed to be protected and served. It's untenable. It's unsustainable. It must stop.
It's a message civil rights attorney Shannon Kennedy is sending to the town of Bernalillo and its police department in a civil rights lawsuit for that traffic stop KRQE Investigates first exposed.
Face the away from me!
Lapel video shows former Bernalillo police officer Jeremy Navarez immediately point a gun at Albrecht, ordering him out of the car.
Step back! Step back!
The officer directs Albrecht into traffic.
Step back, go to your left!
And ignores pleas from the family trying to explain.
My dog's about to die!
Backup arrives and officers continue with the felony stop.
I need to get to that vet.
His wife and 16-year-old son also held at gunpoint.
Come to me, my dog's gonna die.
Albrecht was handcuffed and placed in the back of a patrol car without explanation.
Car!
Sir, my dog's bleeding out of
Okay.
This is inexplicable, immediate escalation of confrontation.
Kennedy's law firm is no stranger to seeking justice from those who abuse their power.
I've been practicing for 30 years, Mr. Kennedy a little longer.
Their lawsuit against Bernalillo claims the Albrechts' constitutional rights were violated and claims the town is liable for officers and public employees' acts, which amounted in this case to claims of assault, battery, false arrest, and false imprisonment of the Albrecht family.
I mean, every day people are pulled over for speeding and they're not drawn down on, you know. So I don't know what's in the water in the town of Bernalillo. We're going to find out, and we're going to make sure that people drive.
She's got weirdly proportioned, like her face is weirdly proportioned. She's kind of got, like, for anyone that's watched, oh god, not, what was it? Was it Z Nation? No, what was it? The Helsing TV show. Sam, when he turns into a vampire and starts hunting people. That's who she reminds me of. It is a very long forehead. Yes, it is. She's got a 5 head. She's got the horse face. She's got... And the bottom lip, for some reason, is ridiculously out of proportion as well. Yes, he was actually... He was fired, but he was hired by another police department. I believe that they may have actually sorted that out since then, and that a police chief may be involved and also lost their job, but they may be completely unrelated. I didn't look at the additional story.
Driving through that town are safe.
Navarez has since been fired and later arrested on a domestic violence charge.
Oh, no
that
shit.
battery case is still pending.
Sadly, it's not surprising.
Kennedy says psychological screenings are required in New Mexico when officers are hired and should flag people like Navarez.
Sometimes there's pressures to get more officers on the street, so the standards are lowered. And then there's no accountability.
The Albrechts weren't cited for speeding that day, eventually let go without explanation, even cursed by the officer as they drove off.
Whoa. Are you kidding me? The individuals that are caught on camera acting in such a disparaging, disgraceful way should be terminated, and they shouldn't be rehired by other departments.
Their dog Stella didn't make it.
What if this dog was a grandmother? What if this dog was a baby? What if someone is speeding to get emergency medical care for a beloved family member and they're drawn down on? I just wonder, where is the leadership?
We reached out to Bernalillo police to see if other officers involved in the stop were disciplined, but we haven't heard back. Kennedy and the Albrechts want administrators to take note.
And we're also going to let the townspeople know, for whatever reason, you are employing as a community people in uniform and with guns that are acting in an abusive, dangerous manner.
That's some bullshit. I mean, hopefully they get somewhere with that. Yes, F's in chat for the dog. But they're right. Imagine if it was someone trying to get to the hospital. Imagine if it was whatever else. I mean, I've always been a proponent for a long time that, like, we should be able to have, like, each car should come with, like, another set of lights or something where they're, like, green so that you can turn on. Or even if they just make it so you can put your hazards on so someone knows that shit's going on. It's happened in Denver. They just stopped traffic for me, allowed me to follow them. This is crazy. Yeah. Type of bosses you get when you defund the police. All right, where are we? All right, screw it. Let's go back to watching some stuff on C-SPAN, shall we? Biden nominee lied to Josh Hawley. Watch Kennedy expose him with simple questions. Okay, I'm down for that. Sorry, peeps. I know today's a little bit of a time waster. I don't know. I'm a little out of sorts, and it's not sitting well.
A few seconds ago, you lied to Senator Hawley, didn't you?
I'm under oath, Senator. I did not lie.
Now, in this case, United States v. Von Rico Weber, you lied to the defense counsel. You lied to Senator Hawley, didn't you?
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ritz, I'm quite confused about this ethics issue or issues, so maybe you can just help me sort it out. So I don't think I maybe understand the facts here. So you said that you've never been subject to an ethics complaint before. Is that right?
I said, to my knowledge, never been subject to an OPR complaint or any sort of formal complaint.
Okay. I'm looking at a letter from May 16th, 2010 to the Office of Professional Responsibility that reads, "This letter is a formal request that your office investigate matters pertaining to the fair dealing and, more important, honesty of Assistant United States Attorney Kevin Ritz."
If that letter exists, Senator, I was unaware of it until just now.
But you're aware of the issues surrounding the Von Rico Weber case, which is the subject of this letter asking for a formal investigation into you. You're aware of that?
As I said, I do have some recollection of that matter.
Okay. So you were subject to a complaint. I have the letter right here. Let's just try to figure out what's going on in this case. I mean, this was a case involving a public defender who you got a plea agreement with, and then she asked to withdraw as counsel because she said you misrepresented the situation to her, and the court granted her motion to withdraw as counsel. That's pretty unusual, isn't it? I mean, what's happening here? She said that you told her that she relied on information about the nature of the crime, which was, she was told, was going to be a marijuana trafficking offense. And then when she got the PSR, it had a base offense level of 34 because the underlying offense was cocaine trafficking. So she had advised her client, based on your representations, here's what you're going to be likely subject to. They accepted the plea deal. She looks at the PSR, and it's something very different, she says, than what you told her. Now, this is a public defender now.
Uh-oh.
And so on that basis, she had to withdraw as counsel, and the court granted her request. That's very unusual. I mean, what happened here?
Senator, first of all, I believe it was not a public defender. It was a defense attorney on the CJA panel.
That doesn't make
in
it any
West
better.
Tennessee. There was a written plea agreement that was entered into.
Yes.
That written plea agreement, as with all of our plea agreements, includes a provision that says these are all of the promises made to this defendant by the government.
Yeah, but then neither...
That's not what the argument or the problem is. If the negotiation of that plea agreement was on the basis of charges that you're saying that they would face at trial and that they would be charged with, but that even if you innocently make that mistake, that's like saying, oh yeah, okay, so here you go, here's what we're likely to be charged with, and you're looking at, say someone gets arrested for pot, okay? And I go to the defense and I say, well, okay, now I know that the likely charge for pot is possession, personal use, whatever, and that it's got a maximum of, I don't know, 3 years. If I go to the public defender and I say to them, okay, well, look, we've got them on this, and this, under the guidelines, you're looking at 10 to 15 years, and this is what we're going to be charging with, and you lie through your teeth about that, that's a misrepresentation for the basis of the agreement. In civil law, if that was a contract, you'd be able to get out of it pretty much straight away. A, for misrepresentation of fact, reliance on misrepresentation, mistake as to fact. Why? If you deliberately misrepresent the facts to another attorney and they rely on that, yes, sure, they should be checking things. But if you as a prosecutor were saying, here's what we're going to charge with, here's the plea deal that we're offering you, and if that plea deal is unfounded or based on a lie, I mean, the fact that she had to withdraw from representation because she felt there was a conflict of interest or whatever else is more than enough to say that this was underhanded. It was a mistake thinking the stream tonight might calm my happy butt down. Yeah, sorry, Richard. When I'm in a bit of a pissy mood, I tend to go for the things that... I spread it around, is what I'm saying.
Neither the indictment, nor the change of plea transcript, nor that agreement says anything about the underlying crime. It just says funds were the proceeds of distributing controlled substances without any specification of the alleged illegal narcotics. So...
Okay, so he lied and put in the ones that would apply if it was cocaine as opposed to a lesser drug. Huh.
What she says is, you sandbagged her, basically.
And that's not true. I made no such promise along those lines. It's
but
not
was
true.
there any indication before the PSR that you were going to hit this guy with the cocaine? I mean, this is unusual. It's unusual to be a Democrat administration nominate somebody who is accused of, who's hated by federal public defenders, and who's accused of sandbagging indigent defendants. So I'm baffled by this. I am totally baffled by this. So I'm trying to figure out what in the world happened. And then you got taken off this case, I think, right?
My recollection, Senator, is that the office had someone else handle it in case I needed to be a witness at a proceeding.
Well,
so yeah, you were
here's
taken
what
off the case.
Vivian Donaldson, who is the counsel who ended up representing the United States, at Ms. Chastain's motion to withdraw as counsel, here's what she said. These allegations about you are serious. That's one of the reasons I am here, meaning in court, and Mr. Ritz will more than likely be taken off this case because of these particular allegations. So did that happen?
And I believe it was in case I needed to be a witness. But
well,
those allegations...
This is what your supervisor said in open court. I'm not quoting you now, private letter. I'm quoting you something from open court. She says you were removed from the case because of the allegations, which she says were very serious. Now, you've represented this committee. You knew nothing about all of this. You answered a question in the committee questionnaire that you weren't aware of any complaint. You weren't aware of any disciplinary committee. You weren't aware of any inquiry ever. But yet I'm reading you a transcript from open court in which your supervising attorney says the allegations against you are very serious and you're going to be removed. So I have to tell you, I don't think it's, I'm trying to figure out what in the world is going on here, because it doesn't sound to me like you've been very forthcoming, certainly to this committee. So what happened? Were you removed because of the allegations of improper behavior?
The allegations were false, first of all.
I'm not asking you about your view. I'm asking you about what you told the court and about what your supervising attorney told the court.
And I don't recall exactly why there may have been a change in counsel.
Mr. Ritz, don't you think you'd want to, I mean, don't you think that's kind of important information?
These allegations were false, and there was never
You have a
finding.
clear memory of that, but you don't have a clear memory of what happened in open court and you being potentially removed by your supervising.
Whether the allegations are false or not does not change that the investigation occurred.
I've never seen it quite like this. This is very, very strange. And I just noticed that we have a sudden instance of amnesia anytime we're dealing with the actual ethical complaint, but you seem to remember the case exceptionally well. So this troubles me, and it's strange. It's very, very strange. Maybe my Democrat colleagues can clear this up. I'm sure they've vetted you. This is very, very odd. So your testimony is you weren't removed. All of this was false. You were never investigated, and this just all went away? Or what happened?
There was certainly no court finding or any other finding by an investigative body of any unethical behavior.
I thought the court then allowed this defendant to change his guilty plea. He pled guilty, and then the court allowed him to withdraw it. That's also very unusual.
It does happen from time to time, Senator.
On the basis of your misrepresentations.
That was not the finding of the court.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ritz, you are a political activist, aren't you?
I would not consider myself that at all, Senator.
Okay. When you were sworn in as U.S. Attorney, you gave a speech, didn't you?
I did.
Okay. Here's what you said. I'm going to quote from your speech. But you should know that justice for me is about more than putting people in prison. For me, it's also about who votes and how hard it is to cast that vote. It's about where pipelines go. It's about where bus routes go. Justice is about whether people...
Well, because in his mind, he wasn't lying, Richard. The way that he phrased that and changed how he responded, in his mind, provided him with plausible deniability around the question. It's not exactly what... Like, he didn't answer the question that was answered, obviously, and for obvious reasons, because he doesn't want to say, yes, I was investigated for an ethical complaint. But it's literally... Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why people do it either, because it can all be looked up.
People in all zip codes can get along. Whether women have access to health care. Whether citizens have affordable housing or clean drinking water. Sometimes those are Department of Justice issues. Sometimes they are not. But for me, they're all justice issues. Did I read that accurately?
I believe so, Senator.
Okay. Did you really remove the Tennessee state flag from your conference room?
Senator, I appreciate you asking about this again. As the chief federal law enforcement...
Welcome. Did you do it?
So I felt it was fundamentally inappropriate when I gave press conferences and similar statements to the public.
Why?
To indicate or suggest somehow that I spoke for the state, which I don't under our system of federalism.
Are you embarrassed to be from Tennessee?
Not at all, Senator. I am from Tennessee, grew up as a public school kid in Tennessee.
But you were embarrassed to have the Tennessee flag.
That's not it at all, Senator.
Okay.
Yeah, she does that.
You have a history of lying to your professional colleagues, don't you?
That's not true, Senator.
Okay. Do you know a former public defender named Stephen Shankman?
I knew him to a degree. I'm not sure we ever had any cases together. I knew who he was, yes.
Well, in a private email, not meant for public consumption, to one of your professional colleagues, this is what Mr. Shankman said. talking about your lying.
Ooh.
He said, it is unfortunate that this is not the first, second, third, or whatever occasion that this sort of thing has occurred. But everyone should be aware of this unfortunate pattern of behavior. You should be aware, he said to the other lawyer, before the other lawyer dealt with you. Your client should be aware, and you should proceed with extreme caution. Was Mr. Shankman lying?
To the degree he suggested that I acted unethically, that was not accurate, and it wasn't in any occasion, much less on numerous occasions.
Okay, let's talk about this case, United States v. Von Rico Weber, which you claim to not remember. But before I do that, a few seconds ago, you lied to Senator Hawley, didn't you?
I'm under oath, Senator. I did not lie.
You said you have no knowledge of any complaint, professional complaint made against you, didn't you?
I said I have no knowledge of any sort of formal complaint, and he read from a letter that I don't believe I ever saw.
And you were shocked. You
If
never heard of that before.
If there were a formal complaint, that, as I said, I had not known about that.
Okay. You were amazed.
I don't recall any of that.
Any-
I recall this Mr. Weber's
You have
case.
amnesia about it.
Again, I am unaware of any formal complaint or investigation. Certainly was not.
You believe in the Tooth Fairy?
Senator, I don't.
You believe in the Easter Bunny? Now, in this case, United States v. Von Rico Weber, you lied to the defense counsel. And the defense counsel then had to go before the court and withdraw a plea for his counsel. And a complaint was filed, about which you apparently have amnesia. And the Justice Department replaced you. And the lawyer from the Justice Department who replaced you, this is what the lawyer said. The new attorney said about you. Said these allegations against Mr. Ritz are, quote, serious. And it is taken so seriously, referring to the Department of Justice, by our office. That is one of the reasons I'm here, and Mr. Ritz will be more than likely be taken off this case because of those allegations. End quote. You lied to Senator Hawley, didn't you?
I didn't lie to the defense counsel in that case. I didn't lie today, Senator.
Now, my good friend Senator Ossoff asked you if you'd follow the law. And you said, yeah. But if you're lying to us today, we're stuck with you, aren't we?
Senator, I have not lied and did not lie in that case.
You just have amnesia.
I did not have sex with that woman.
There was a written plea agreement with the entire agreement of the parties.
Yeah, did that agreement include the representations that you made to them in negotiating that agreement? That is not the same thing. That is not the same question. You're full of shit. This is exactly the same argument that we're looking at with Karen Reed and Bev. The deliberations and the verdict itself are two separate individual things. If the representations reaching the agreement include that you misrepresented them, then the underlying agreement itself should be void. And that does mean that, you lied. Didn't Clinton get impeached for that lie? I've got no clue. I just thought it was funny.
If you believe that, you believe Elvis is alive and running a small bait stand on Lake Erie. Shame on you.
In your 2023 U.S. Attorney Investiture speech, you highlighted the challenges you believe America faces and what justice means. You said, quote, "We're experiencing a long overdue reckoning with racism in the criminal justice system." Mr. Ritz, what part of the criminal justice system needs a long overdue reckoning?
Senator, what I was describing were a number of things that have happened in recent years in this country that framed, I would say, in some ways the work that we do in the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Is the American justice system systematically racist?
That is not a sentiment that I hold. To the degree there is a definition of what being systematically racist means, I understand some individuals have pointed to disparities in sentencing and that type of thing, but that's not a view that I have.
So that's not a view that you have. That was your testimony. Well, you also said, quote, "There cannot be one rule of law for people who look like me and another for people of color." That sure sounds like the view you just said you didn't have. Do you believe that's our system, that our justice system has one rule of law for people that look like you and a different rule of law for people of color?
No, what I said is that absolutely we cannot have one rule of law for people who look like me and another for people of color. We cannot have one rule of law for the powerless and another for the... There's just one rule of law. That's what I said.
You also said, when asked if the criminal justice system is systematically racist, you said, quote, "There are structural barriers and disparate outcomes that communities of color experience in our society, separate and apart from any individual's views or intentions." Now, that again seems to be saying the same thing that you're saying you weren't saying. I'm just trying to understand what your views are.
And Senator, that was my attempt in that written question to grapple with, again, what was being asked by systematic racism. I understand some have pointed to structural barriers and disparate outcomes.
So what are the barriers and outcomes you're referring to?
I can think of one prominent example that I've had some experience with, which is the disparity in cocaine sentencing between crack sentencing and powder sentencing. This body has addressed those disparities on multiple occasions, and that has been, as I understand it,
yes.
Something
Until the
that
money's in my account, that
people
is
have addressed as a result of disparities.
Okay, you also said in responses to questions for the record that, as the Attorney General has explained, everyone has implicit biases. So what are your implicit biases?
Senator, I understand implicit bias to refer to unconscious bias that exists below the level of consciousness, and so to the degree I have implicit biases, I think we all do. I think that's partly the point. Is
so everyone's a racist whether they know it or not?
And that's, I would say that everyone might have implicit biases, and I don't know what...
So what's the difference between bias and prejudice?
How you act upon it.
There can be a lot of overlap in those things. It depends, I think, on the context.
So you're saying everyone is prejudiced?
That's not what I said, Senator.
You just said everyone has implicit biases, and you said that bias and prejudice, I think your words were, there's a lot of overlap.
I think that's right, and I understand implicit bias, and I'm not an expert on the subject, to refer to a set of biases that may exist under a conscious level. So,
since you talk about these implicit bias issues, have you taken a so-called implicit bias test?
We received training that was put on during the last administration in our office on implicit bias. I attended that training in our office.
And what did you take a test?
I don't believe there was a test associated with that, Senator.
Okay, you also said, quote, "But you should know that for justice, for me, is about more than putting people in prison. For me, it's also about who votes and how hard it is to cast that vote. It's about where pipelines or bus routes go. Justice is about whether people in all zip codes can get a loan, whether women have access to health care." That's an interesting statement, and in reading it, what's striking is that that's de-emphasizing the core role of a U.S. attorney. The last I checked, a U.S. attorney is not in the policy business of deciding where pipelines go. That's the role of environmental activists and left-wing activists, but is not supposed to be a U.S. attorney. Why was your focus elsewhere?
Senator, and the very next thing I said was that those are not issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis in the U.S. Attorney's Office, where we are primarily focused on enforcing criminal laws. I was seeking to place justice as a broad concept at the center of, to place our work within justice as a broad concept.
So do you agree that Memphis is one of the most dangerous cities in the nation?
It is. We have an intolerable amount of violent crime, and that's why there's no higher priority for us in our office.
Well, There's no higher priority except for pipelines, except for bus routes, except for bank loans, except for implicit bias, except for the fact that everyone is prejudiced. All of those other things are what you're focused on talking about instead of actually locking up bad guys who are murdering and raping and hurting people.
In those same comments,
Thank you,
Senator,
Ted.
I said that we don't apologize for seeking significant prison sentences, and that's at the core of what we do. When we have serious violent crime, we seek serious sentences and consequences.
Thank you.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Mr. Ritz, for standing for this nomination and for being here today. Now, it's my understanding that you were subject to an ethics investigation by OPR. Is that right?
Never in my career.
Never. But you're aware of the situation in United States versus Von Rico Weber, where you were accused of making these material representations.
So, hang on. You're aware that the letter was made. It comes down to, was a formal investigation the outcome of that letter? Did they initiate an investigation? Yes or no? Just ask him the damn question.
To a defendant's attorney in order to elicit a guilty plea.
I have some recollection of that, Senator, but I was not subject to any sort of formal complaint or investigation.
Okay. Well, it's my understanding that in this circumstance, this would have resulted in the defendant serving a 10-year prison sentence, and the accusation is that you led the defendant to believe that a low sentence, a much lower sentence, would be in order, or perhaps even probation. I just want to read to you the letter, the email that we received from the concerned defense attorney, shining light on the incident. The person writing this email is recounting a conversation with the defense attorney in which you allegedly misled the defense attorney and the defendant. After the defense attorney explains it, here's how he explains it. At this point, I stopped the conversation and said, was the AUSA Kevin Ritz? The answer was yes. It is unfortunate that this is not the first, second, third, or whatever occasion that this sort of thing has occurred, but everyone should be aware of this unfortunate pattern of behavior. You should be aware, your clients should be aware, and you should proceed with extreme caution. It is a sad commentary. This is a concerning allegation, of course. Now, I assume that you would agree, certainly, that misleading a criminal defense counsel as to the nature of the charges against the defendant and the likely sentence that might result from a guilty plea that would violate a federal prosecutor's ethical responsibilities.
Yes, and I did not do that in that case, Senator.
Now, my understanding is that a complaint was made against you with the Department of Justice Office of Professional Responsibility and that an investigation ensued. At what point did you become aware of that investigation?
Again, Senator, to my knowledge, there was never an OPR investigation or a complaint for that matter.
Okay, so you're not aware of anything like that?
That's correct.
Does the information you just heard, the accusation, does that reflect your pattern of behavior as a prosecutor?
Absolutely not. And I recall this, and I recall that the person who had sent that email communication certainly had not communicated with me. I'm not actually sure we had ever had cases together in the first place. In any event, I took action, and I believe I communicated with everyone who received that, because in our federal district, it's really important for AUSAs and defense attorneys to be able to trust each other. And sure. I took my reputation very seriously.
Okay, but you would agree that if you had done those things, which that had resulted in a complaint to OPR and you didn't disclose it, either of those things would be a problem?
If I had acted unethically, absolutely, but I did not.
Now, as you know, one of the most important decisions a U.S. attorney can make is the decision about whom to hire as a first assistant U.S. attorney. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
It's a pretty important thing. And it's why I find it disturbing that you chose to hire Ms. Reagan Taylor Fondren to serve as your first assistant, despite the 2 disciplinary investigations that she was under for serious accusations relating to ethics violations. As a former federal prosecutor myself, I know that the fairness of the justice system depends a lot on, among other things, how prosecutors handle things like exculpatory evidence. And withholding exculpatory evidence from defense is a big problem. Ever since Brady versus Maryland was decided in 1963, every prosecutor knows that there is an obligation to disclose these things. Now, when you chose Ms. Taylor Fondren to be your first assistant, were you aware of the 2 ongoing investigations of her alleged prosecutorial misconduct related to failure to disclose exculpatory evidence?
I may have been aware of ongoing proceedings. My recollection, Senator, they were not. They were still proceeding, and I honestly can't remember if they still are today.
So they were pending at the time you chose her. Were you not concerned about that?
Senator, I am not sure I knew the particulars of the situation.
In fact, she began your service as a first assistant before her court-ordered suspension from legal practice was enforced. Is that right?
I believe that's correct, Senator. I'm not actually entirely sure.
Now, a man served 4 additional years in prison because of
Aussie
the
has donated
misconduct of your first assistant. Now,
$2.00
thankfully,
and says this guy is going to need LB after this.
LB? I mean, I would have thought that he should have went into this with lube, but brief recap of what's going on. This is a Biden nominee from the to the federal court, and he lied about whether or not he wanted to effectively. Well, I mean, he alleges that he didn't know, but it appears that he lied about someone making a complaint about him for making an ethics violation. He lied to a public defender in order to get a plea agreement signed, and as it turns out, he advised them of details related to cocaine instead of marijuana, or... I was only half paying attention. Point is, bad dude would not let you type lube. What year do you know? No, unfortunately. I mean, I can look it up. That's not particularly difficult.
the Court of Appeals corrected her error, but not for the full 4 years. And so was it in spite of or because of Ms. Taylor Fongren's willingness to violate the defendant's constitutional rights that you chose her to be your first assistant?
Senator, as I said before, I believe that Ms. Fondren and all of our AUS...
Hang on. What is it? Kevin Gafford Ritz. Kevin Gafford Ritz. Oh, look, confirmed by the Senate. Who's shocked? When was this? Oh, this was this year. Latest action was in May, placed on the Senate executive calendar. Yeah, okay. So this was actually not all that long ago. He's still a nominee, but not confirmed. Huh. There you go. What's this? My boss told me to shut up. He threatened to kill me. Oh, what the hell? I'm not ready to go to bed yet. Still got another... Let's go with the boss told me to shut up.
Again, I raised concerns internally. I was sidelined.
What's that? Look at the other one I sent you. Oh, that was the... Hang on. Stingy sent me another one. He wants to... Oh, it's... Yeah, okay. It's got my Ocus. Okay.
That one might be. I was told to shut up.
I'll go with that one instead.
Senator Hawley, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, let's just come back to Jose Ibarra, if we can. You know who that is. That's a question. You know what he did?
I know what he's accused of doing.
Which is?
Murdering a young woman.
And that wasn't the first crime that he committed in this country, was it?
Ossian has donated $10.00 and says doggo treat please and woof you.
Thank you very much for the $10 that will go towards the Yobst v Mitchell stuff. In front of the camera, if you please. Sit. And thank you very much for that. Of course she knew. She knows the sound of that bag. What are you kidding me?
Obviously, I'm not going to speak about the facts of the case because there is an ongoing criminal investigation.
Have you read his parole file?
Senator.
Also, just for those of you that are wondering what the hell I'm actually doing, I'm sitting here planning out the next month's worth of shows. How dangerous do you think it'd be for me to do a call-in show? I mean, obviously it'd have to be on Rumble, I think, but I kind of feel like I need to do one. It's been a while, and I'm thinking about calling it open mic night. So I'll probably do that. We'll do a Monday on Rumble.
Same answer.
So you're not going to say whether or not you've read the parole file? I've got it right here. Have you read this?
Senator, I do not want to speak to the particulars of the case given
with the delay.
Yeah, I find this interesting because this is a new answer today. You've changed your answers all over the map on this, and it looks like to me you just don't want to answer the question. 2 days ago, you were asked about this in the House Homeland Security Committee. I've got the transcript right here in front of me. You were asked the same question. Jose Ibarra, why was he paroled? You said...
What's the general... Hang on, we had one there that... What's the general perception of the Biden administration in Australia? Depends who you ask, because, of course, we still have our left and right side leaning. At the moment, we have a left-wing government in place as well, so a lot of people are still supporting anyone that has the same sort of views as them. For anyone with half a brain, they're sort of sitting, laughing at the administration, not thinking a whole lot of it. But you got to remember as well, like 70% of our media is Murdoch controlled as well. So it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. You here for Angel? Bad as it sounds, aside from what happened with Trump earlier in the week, a lot of Australians don't really have time to deal with American politics. We don't see a whole lot on the news. There's just like vague opinions on things. Word on the street was that Biden's going to pull out. Yes, I have heard that too, that supposedly there's a speech written and it's supposed to happen sometime this weekend and that sort of thing. Honestly, bad as it sounds, I don't think most people here care. So, at work we call one of the bosses Biden because he's lost it. No way that any country takes the US seriously anymore. I thought Biden admin said that adults are back in charge. It's shameful. So hopefully that answers your question.
Said, I don't know. You said, I don't know. I don't have the case details with me today. Congressman Bishop says, you don't know? And you said, I don't know. I don't have the details with respect to that individual's case, but I would be pleased to provide them to you, Congressman. You didn't know 2 days ago. Now, interestingly, on April the 10th, 6 days before that, you gave Senator Katie Britt a different answer. She asked you the same question. She said, why was Jose Ibarra paroled into the United States? You said, and I quote, Ranking Member Britt, there was no derogatory information of which we were aware. So you were happy to comment on the case then, on April the 10th. By April the 16th, you had developed amnesia, and today you say you just won't comment. So which is it, Mr. Secretary? Now that we have the file, I'll tell you what the difference is. Congressman Bishop didn't have the parole file, and Senator Britt didn't have the parole file, and now we do have the parole file. And now we all know that the reason he was paroled into this country was because lack of detention capacity, which, as you and I both know, is not a valid reason under the statute. And now that we know that for sure, this is right out of the parole file. Here it is. Subject was paroled due to detention capacity at the Central Processing Center in El Paso, Texas. Now, suddenly, you don't want to talk about it. This is...
Sorry, the thing that just got me is he just casually looks down at the camera.
El Paso, Texas.
He's
now,
like, yeah, okay.
Suddenly, you don't want to talk about it. This is extraordinary. It's also a pattern with you. So, Let me just try one more time. Have you read the parole file?
Senator, I'm going to give the same answer, and let me say.
Well, which one? Are you going to give me the answer you gave to Senator Britt? Or are you going to give the answer you gave to Congressman Bishop?
I don't have to worry
or
about
the answer
boobs,
you gave
'cause
to
I'm not
Senator
letting people on
Paul, or do you want
camera.
to try a fourth one?
Senator, I will not speak to the particulars of the case, given the pending criminal
Yeah,
prosecution.
well, I'm sure. Well, you certainly, of course you don't want to, because it is an absolutely damning indictment of your policies. Let's just review Jose Barrera and how he came to be here. On September the 8th, 2022, he was encountered by United States Border Patrol in El Paso, Texas, and was paroled into the United States due to lack of detention capacity. A provision, a proviso, a rule that is not permitted under the statute. You and I both know you know this. You knew it when you were talking to Congressman Bishop. You knew it when you were testifying to Senator Britt, and you know it today. You just never wanted to cop to it because the statute doesn't permit it. And so you lied to Congressman Bishop and you lied to Senator Britt. And now you are hiding behind the ongoing prosecution excuse because it's the last one left to you, because you testified falsely under oath. Then on July 19th, 2023, Ibarra reports for a biometric appointment and was fingerprinted. This is now in New York. The results come back and indicate he has a criminal history. So he's in this country, he has a criminal history. September 14th, he is arrested in New York by NYPD for what? Injuring a child. September 14th, 2023, he is arrested for injuring a child. What happens? The offense was never prosecuted and the arrest was expunged. I'm reading right out of the parole file. Expunged. Nothing is done to this guy. He had a criminal record to start with. He's in the country on illegal grounds. You have falsely and illegally allowed him in. He commits a crime against a child. He's not prosecuted. It's expunged. In November, get this, in November, Ibarra files an application for employment authorization. And unbelievably, on December the 9th, 2023, it's approved. So this is your policies in action, Mr. Secretary. A criminal is permitted into this country on grounds flatly not permitted, flatly contradictory to the statute. He commits a crime against a child, and then he gets a work permit. He gets a work permit. You want to know why all of the jobs in the last 2 or 3 years have gone to illegal migrants? Working people in this country can't get a job. Their unemployment rate's high. Why? Because of things like this. And then what's he do? Well, we all know. Then in February, he commits the heinous crime against Laken Riley. Is this a record that you are proud of?
Senator, you've misstated some facts.
I have read from the parole file, which you have said you don't recall, don't have, you miscited. I'm reading from it. It is right here. And I've just, pursuant to the speech and debate clause, I have just read it into the record. And the reason is, you have lied repeatedly to Congress and to the American people about this. They deserve to know. And the only way they're going to know is if I tell them. I've just told them. It's in the record now. I've read it verbatim from the parole file. Verbatim.
Yeah.
I just want to know
some weird shit's going on with YouTube. For those of you that weren't here at the start of the show, just so you're aware, I'm not going to be able to start pre-scheduling my shows, at least for the foreseeable future, until YouTube gets their shit together. Because it turns out it's not just, like, it's not because I switched to OBS, it's not because of Streamlabs, it's not even, I've got to retry it with StreamYard, and that may make a difference. But basically, anytime I pre-schedule a stream, it's causing an error, and I have to create a new one in order to go live. So, frankly, it's just going to be too much of a hassle. So what I'll do is I'll put out, I think I'll just use community notes and X to let people know when I'm going live. And then I've just got to hope and pray that I'm on time, basically.
Why did you change your story so often? Why didn't you just answer honestly to Congressman Bishop and Senator Britt?
Senator, I am confident that justice will be vindicated in the criminal prosecution of the case.
Well, hopefully he'll get more of a trial than you got. Otherwise, there'll be no justice for anyone at all. Let me ask you something else. Travis Wolf.
And boom goes dynamite.
Not off the top of my head.
Travis Wolf is a 12-year-old boy from Missouri. This is him. Travis was killed on December 20th, 2023, or I should say he was in a tragic attack on that night. He died some weeks later, head-on collision. The person driving the vehicle, who's now been charged with 6 criminal counts, is Indrina Bracco. Do you know who that is?
I do not, but let me communicate that I know that all of our hearts break for the family of this young boy who died in that accident.
Well, she's an illegal migrant here from Venezuela. Local law enforcement tell me that she was detained briefly at the border in 2023 and then released. And then she commits this crime. Multiple people have been stabbed in O'Fallon, Missouri by illegal migrants. Mr. Secretary, I know that you think your policies are a success. You've sat right there in that chair and you've told me over and over our policies are working. You're on the record years and years saying that. Maybe they're working for you. Maybe they're working for your political objectives, whatever they may be, I don't know. But they're not working for Laken Riley or Travis Wolfe or the people of my state. They are, in fact, a travesty. What you have done is a travesty. And, sir, it is long past time for you to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And recognize right now Ranking Member Paul for his comments.
Secretary Mayorkas, under your administration, the Biden administration, over 1 million people have been paroled. What is the criteria you use for paroling individuals?
Ranking Member Paul, the parole process is one that we execute according to the law. We make individualized determinations with respect to significant public benefit or an urgent humanitarian reason.
So for what reason was the alleged killer of Laken Riley, Jose Ibarra, paroled and allowed to come into this country?
Ranking Member Paul, first and foremost, all our hearts break for the family of Ms. Riley. Secondly, the perpetrator of this heinous criminal act needs to meet justice to the fullest extent of the law, and I will not comment on the particulars of the case because the matter is being prosecuted
that's some bullshit.
By authorities now.
This isn't on the case of whether or not he murdered her. This is on the case of why you paroled him. Why was he paroled?
My same answer, Ranking Member Paul.
You're refusing to answer the question?
I have provided my answer, Ranking Member Paul.
You're refusing to give any specifics about Jose Ibarra. Well, I have the documentation, and the document says that the subject, the person accused of killing Laken Riley, was paroled due to detention capacity. It was full. So is detention capacity statutorily allowed to be used as a reasoning for parole?
Allow me to assure you that individuals who pose a public safety threat or national security are our highest priority for detention. The reality, not just with respect to this administration, but every administration that precedes me, is that the number of encounters has exceeded the number of detention beds available.
The question is it statutorily, legally allowed to use the excuse that our camp is full? He was paroled due to detention capacity. Is that allowed under the law?
Ranking Member Paul, my prior answer stands.
Which means you're not going to answer the question. Are you pleading the Fifth Amendment?
No, Ranking Member Paul, I've answered the question. That
no, you haven't.
Have you, though?
The question is very specific. You have testified previously, and you have testified today that there are 2 reasons you can be paroled: urgent humanitarian need or significant public benefit. That's not the reason listed. The reason listed is paroled due to detention.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Not that, obviously. I just realized that I can open Social Stream in OBS as a doc. I don't have to have it as a separate web page anymore. I don't have to keep looking over. Sick. You're out, Jill? No worries. Have a good day.
Capacity.
Evening. Given it's
parole
20 to
due to
midnight
detention capacity
on a Saturday,
a lawful reason for paroling someone?
Ranking Member Paul, there are different bases for parole. I am not a legal expert in this regard, but let me assure you that when an individual is encountered at the border and they are deemed to be, at the time of encounter, a threat to public safety or national security.
What's going on? It's choppy. What? Hang on. Hang on. No, I want to go to my goddamn channel. Just about to ask if it was just me. Senior test, lol, and yes, you were choppy. Oh, okay. Senior test, lol, and yes, you were choppy. Oh, okay. Interesting. I have no idea how, why, or whatever, but that's seems to be working fine for me, unless there's some shit going on. I don't know. Just got better? Okay.
They are a priority for detention. If not, they receive a notice to appear and are placed in immigration enforcement proceedings. The number of...
Oh, hang on. I just got an error saying YouTube's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. What's going on? Apparently something's going on. See, I don't know what the hell is wrong with YouTube. At the moment, if I go into the Go Live in YouTube, it's showing that the stream from last night still exists, and it's the one that's supposed to be going live. Like, open legit. YouTube's not receiving enough video as such, viewers will experience buffering. How and why? Your cam's smooth again now. It seems to be when I'm playing the video. I don't know why it's dropping. Oh, and now it's giving me twice the chat because I've got the chat open there, so just ignore that. Still a reduced frame rate. Looks like I can't handle both your camera and the rebroadcast of the testimony. I think something's going on with YouTube. Is it because you're pressing pause? Maybe it's to stop others using videos that pausing to avoid copyright. They're not that clever, Jim. As bad as it sounds, they're just not that clever. No, this seems to be some sort of an issue, but for some reason, I've got no dropped frames on my end. I've got no... It's still going out at 10,000 frames, so that's fine. What's this? Flood warning. I just got a flood notification. Oh well. Might be an upload issue and an issue with your ISP. Okay, maybe. Oh, well, don't worry. Don't stress about it, Boosh. You'll get to hear it one way or another. Let me have a quick... Isn't YouTube always messing around with right side streams? Well... Let's have a look, see what the speed's like connecting out to the server. Yes, allow. Oh, it'll just be because there was I'm pulling down a gigabit. And it could be a lot worse. I didn't even notice you sent me a DM, Singe. Oh, no, look, that's okay. I'll work around it. Yeah, no, that should be fine. Oh, hang on. Popular services currently reporting issues. MBN, Dodo, Optus. I'll have a quick look at Down Detector. Yeah, don't ask me again. I just want to look. What have we got currently? Okay, yeah, looks like most of the ISPs are currently having issues as well. I may disappear off the internet anyway. YouTube can't handle the emus. Rebooted my Roku for good measure to cast it this morning. Oh, sorry about that, Amy. Well, no, I mean, I was thinking about Starlink, but, yeah, there we go. Even my ISP's been hit. All right. Well, I mean, look, we're going to keep going with it either way because I'm not letting that deter me. will do is close that out because I'm over it having double the chat. So that's fine. All right.
Of individuals encountered at the border exceed the number of beds available in our detention facilities. That is not something specific to this administration. That is something that has been true.
You might have more beds if they remained in Mexico. Did the administration, when you came into office, reverse 92 executive orders of the Trump administration, which allowed them to apparently have people remain in Mexico, allowed them to have, probably 90% less parolees than you have? And so when you come to us and you say, oh, gosh, if we only had more legislation, we could do it, why don't you bring back the executive orders of Donald Trump that seem to be working? You immediately got rid of them for political purposes. The border's a disaster. Why don't you bring back the 92 executive orders that you reversed?
I respectfully, Ranking Member Paul, disagree with the premise of your question.
That's because you refuse to look at the facts, and it's still, I guess, insulting to all of us and insulting to the memory of Laken Riley and to the memory of others who have been killed by people who came into this country. March 2nd, an illegal alien who got into the country as a getaway killed Washington State Trooper Christopher Gadd. Haitian man who entered the U.S. via the CHNV parole program was arrested for sexual assault of a 15-year-old girl. March 21st, illegal aliens in El Paso rushed the fence. You saw that on national television. An illegal alien on March 23rd murdered 25-year-old Michigan resident Ruby Garcia. Chinese national came across the border and illegally breached a military base in California. I mean, the stories go on, and I think a lot of people in America are going to be appalled, that you refuse to answer the questions. Jose Ibarra, was it lawful to parole him? Was it lawful to let him in the country because you say the camp's full?
Ranking Member Paul is a former federal prosecutor for 12 years. I can say with tremendous conviction that individuals who commit criminal acts need to be held accountable for their crimes.
Well, that's not much consolation if you wait until after he's murdered somebody. See, part of the problem is, and I think people would be aghast to know this, that when you come in, you just give people your name, right? It's the honor system. There may be some databases you check, but certainly most of the domestic crimes in Venezuela probably are not in any kind of international database. So if you waltz into the country through your generous parole programs and say, I'm John Smith from Venezuela, you have no way of ascertaining that, and you still let them go. So you say, well, we're going to make sure that they're not a violent criminal. You have no way. You look in some databases, maybe they're not in the database, but you have no way of even knowing if that's their name. Then you give them biometric, you give them, you give them fingerprints. Now they have a new name and fingerprints. They essentially have been given a new identity by your agency. I don't know. I'm just so sickened and sad by the families that have lost loved ones from this. I don't see real remorse. I don't see you're willing to answer the questions. I mean, if it were me, I would be so upset by this. I would be doing everything possible to make sure that another Jose Ibarra doesn't get in. But apparently you let his brother in too, and his brother's got a rap sheet 10 times longer than Jose does. And so, I don't know. All I can express is disappointment and bewilderment that the Democrats let you get away with it.
Secretary Mayorkas, you and I have spent a lot of time together. I would dare say that you and I have spent more time together than anyone on this dais. You and I both know there are things the executive branch can do, and there are things that Congress can do to be able to attack this. The challenge becomes trying to get those things implemented to be able to do it. There's a rumor that's out there that the administration's considering a change in 212F authorities, and that there may be some new executive authority used during this time period. Can you give us some insight of what that might be and what is under consideration?
Senator, I'm very proud of the time that we spent together negotiating what would have been a transformative solution to our broken immigration system. We in the government consider consistently all the time what options are available to us. Please explain what's going on with CrowdStrike. That is the responsibility of of good government. We have not made any decisions that I'm in a position to announce today, but I can assure you that we consider all the options before us in executing our responsibilities to the American people.
You have an idea of a time period when that might be implemented? I know you're making some considerations on that. When would we know?
There has been no decision made yet. I don't have a time frame to present to you.
There were clearly, as Senator Johnson mentioned, there are clearly differences in how President Trump enforced the border. There's also differences in how President Obama enforced the border than how it's currently being done now through the same executive authorities of things that were out there. The negotiated agreements with Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador at the time that President Trump had achieved, we don't have that same kind of agreement with them. I've had some Guatemalan leaders that have reached out to me and said, we want to reestablish some of those same type of agreements that are there to be able to get that. We don't have some of the same enforcement mechanisms. I know the court stepped back in and said they're remaining in Mexico, the MPP, we've got to be able to reinstitute. The facility was changed on it, but the enforcement is different there.
Oh, actually, I'm a dumbass. What I can do is take the quality down.
There are differences that are
If
there.
that makes a difference.
I think what needs to be done here is President Biden, DHS, to use all the levers that you have to be able to enforce the border, as President Obama did and as President Trump did. This Congress also has a responsibility as well.
So I just hit pause for a bit. Oh, did dropping the frame rate, was it okay? Okay.
We had negotiated together was doubling the number of deportation flights, dramatically increasing the number of detention beds, increasing agents, increasing officers, increasing the number of immigration judges, increasing asylum officers, changing the definition of asylum so that there's a more rapid turnaround in that process, changing the process for expedited removal so that you're not hamstrung with some of the court decisions that have been made in the past. All of those things were dramatic changes that Congress needs to do. So I've been hard on members here to say we've got work that we've got to do, but you and I have had frank conversations as well to be able to say there are things that the administration can do. I encourage State Department to be more focused on recalcitrant countries and turning people around. I encourage Department of Justice to be more clear on enforcement of things that they're not doing either right now. But the frustration that you hear from the dais here is a sense that, yeah, Congress has things that we need to do, but we don't feel like State Department, DOJ, and DHS is using every tool at their resource. So I would tell you, we're eager to see the 212F and what is being determined at this point and what can be done, because this last number I saw, I think we had about 5,800 people that crossed yesterday. And so obviously that's an intolerable number for everybody on it. If I can ask a quick question as well, you and I have talked several times about special interest aliens. This is a different group out there that's been difficult to get information about. It's a group that DHS has defined for a while as folks with a potential for a national security risk. We understand there are thousands of individuals that have been designated as a special interest alien, but we can't get any information on it. This committee that has the oversight has had one briefing on it, and it was last year. That was a bipartisan briefing, and Senator Sinema and I worked for months to be able to get that one classified briefing on it. Since that briefing time, we've asked for follow-up, and we've gotten nothing on it to get details. How many special interest aliens? Where are they coming from? What are the details on those? These are folks that your team has identified as a potential national.
How the hell can I be choppy if I'm not moving? I wonder if... Hang on here. I mean, there's like... There's 3 minutes left of it. Some of his movements is related to global water shortages. Okay. Doing pretty well for people trying to make me pee my pants. It's the emojis. Okay. All right. Someone remind me to turn that back on.
National security risks. We don't know how they're being handled, but it is our understanding thousands of them are being released. Can you give us any clarity on that, and can you give us a time that we'll be able to get access to that information about those folks?
Senator, I'm very disappointed to hear that you feel that we haven't provided you with the information you've requested with respect to special interest aliens. I will work with my team to ensure a briefing of those of you who are interested in this very important subject in an appropriate setting.
Great. We have followed up. I have a list here of the number of requests. We've had 6 formal requests to your office just this calendar year, and every time we've not received an answer to it. So we absolutely need more information about this because that's a very special concern to us to try to figure out how do we actually get that resolved. On the budget request that's coming out, when you and I worked on the supplemental piece, we included funding for 50,000 detention beds and for deportation flights to be dramatically increased. Part of the issue was, obviously, if we're releasing people, especially single adults, it just increases the number of people that are coming. If we don't turn people around, there aren't immediate consequences, then more people just come because there's a delayed consequence, which is really no consequence. So my question is, in the budget request, we're to 34,000 beds for budget request. Why that number when we know we could get up to 50,000 or at least to 40,000 we could get up to?
I've
why a
changed some
lower
other
number
settings
in
as
a budget
well,
request
so
rather than the
I-
number that you know you need?
Senator,
Someone give it a go and tell me whether or not
the,
it turns choppy again.
The budget is, of course, presented under the context of the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
Just in case it was 'cause
Our
I
2025
dealt with something in relation
budget
to the,
was
bit rate.
presented before the 2024 budget was enacted. We fully support the 41,500 detention beds that were presented in the fiscal year 2024 budget.
Yeah, okay.
I
Well,
continue
YouTube
to
on my
believe
end
in
saying that the
context of
stream health is
Senate's
healthy now,
bipartisan
so
legislation, the 50 or
think we're good.
55,000 beds was an advancement in our efforts, and we look forward to working with this committee and Congress on funding the detention beds that are needed.
I hope that's so. We've got to be able to get that resolved. That's a serious issue that only Congress can resolve, but we've got to be able to implement. We need the White House to also make the request on it. One last thing I'll just ask for the record, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, on this. DHS Ombudsman for Citizenship and Immigration Services found
Okay.
this statement.
Apparently I just had
the
to
parole
limit the
programs that
the
are
bit
currently
rate.
being used at our southern border that are allowing more people to come in. The parole programs require diverting funding and employee resources within USCIS from other immigration programs. We've experienced this in our office. It's become
Oh crap! I didn't mean to actually click on that. Ted Cruz goes nuts on Mayorkas in fiery immigration debate, almost unwatchable. Oh, it's 43 minutes. I mean, look, I don't really have anywhere to be or anything else to do aside from the fact that I'm supposed to be in bed in the next hour or so. So, I mean, if you guys want, I can put this on. We can sit and watch it. We can do whatever else. As far as I can tell, there's no one else.
I Can't Remember has donated £9.99.
Appreciate it. Not sure YouTube goes over 6,000. No, it generally doesn't, and that's what I've limited it down to. The reason I had it up was because Rumble supposedly can handle some of it, but apparently it's an issue. DHS Immigration Services are allowing more people to come in more in 1 month than a year during Trump. Yep. And we have the same problem here, that the Labor government let more people in a single year than the preceding decade. 1.5 speed, let's do it. Oh, what the hell. Just as long as you're not expecting me to be entertaining. Damn, I love that I can put the social stream on the side. Like, that's just sweet.
Good morning.
Is there a crisis at our southern border?
Senator, there is a very significant...
That's a yes or no question.
There's a very
Oh, hang on. Before we put this one through, I did want to show this, which is from Pirate Software. I do like Thor. And Stingy sent this one through. Apparently, this is a nice, good explanation of exactly what happened with CrowdStrike and why shit has hit the fan. We're used to you not being entertaining? Ouch! Whoa! Corn Pope! When did I piss in your cereal? Oh. Jokes. I was like, fuck, what did I do now?
With CrowdStrike? All right, CrowdStrike is a security company. They released a patch. That patch causes Windows machines, unfortunately, to be sod over and over and over again, forever. And the only way to fix this is with an IT person to manually fix them. Oh boy. Now, understand that CrowdStrike is on millions of computers. Millions of computers. And a lot of them are critical infrastructure. So things like stock markets are impacted, things like hospitals are impacted, emergency services like 911 are down in some countries, airports are down all over the world, you've got grocery systems, you've got banks, you've got government shit, everything is down. It is a worldwide, global IT infrastructure failure.
Yeah, and look, the very simple fact of the matter is I'm concerned that this may give certain individuals or certain organizations ideas. Because seeing how easy it is to fuck things up when it's an inadvertent thing, I was stupid enough that I didn't have cash on me on that day, and literally, you couldn't do anything. I was very lucky that the wife had someone on. Is why everyone was cussing so much yesterday. Yeah, and like even today, we went to the supermarket because we actually had to stock up and get some stuff. And no, digital currency, I don't trust it in the slightest. Not when this sort of shit can happen.
Ossieton has donated $10.00 and says dog treat for Angle, please.
Okay, actually, I think technically that's 2 because I think I can't remember. Also sent through a tenner as well. Yes. Sit. Don't you grumble at me. I should have made you sniff that first. CrowdStrike's on billions of computers. It's not only that, though. It was literally... Because we went in... That's what I was saying. We went into the supermarket today, and like a third of the computers were working. So a third of the checkouts were open. But you know what the hilarious thing is? That because people were already rostered on to work that day, they had 2 people working each of the registers. And the funny thing is that they want to go to self-serve and all that sort of stuff and be pains in the asses. Sit. Sniff. Okay. But they were just churning through it. They were just getting it done. People getting in, getting out, and it was done. Had it here, no credit. Yep. That's why I carry cash all the time now. Yes, everybody should be carrying cash at all times, at least a small amount. Or at least, you know, have some packed under the mattress for a rainy day, you know? That was a doggo heavy site. Yes, it was. Can you give a brief synopsis of what happened? Well, literally Thor just sort of explained it for us, but basically it's a cybersecurity software company that has infrastructure built into most Windows computers, and it's used for pretty well everything. We're talking millions, billions of computers across the face of the earth. And they force updated a patch into Windows. And as a result, it was causing a critical error in the operating system that was causing it to go to blue screen of death over and over and over again. Now, until someone can physically go in and manually repair that, the computer can't actually be fixed. I don't, but I can't really use it where I live, sadly. That kind of hit home yesterday, though my neighborhood wasn't impacted. Oh, there you go. Your check card work credit didn't even try. Huh. Our FPOS was completely down here, so. New boss has been pushing to move to CrowdStrike. I was laughing all day. Anyway, let's finish this quick video from Thor, and then we'll get back to the random crap.
This is billions to trillions of dollars in damage. This is the largest outage I have ever seen in my life and has ever existed in the history of any technology we know of. It's a pretty big deal. It's
That's
not
a
a
terrifying
Microsoft
thought.
bug. It's a CrowdStrike bug. It has nothing to do with Microsoft at all. Yeah, shit sucks. Please explain.
Doesn't mean I'm not going to use that video as often as I can. CrowdStrike thing is why cash should always be accepted. Yes, absolutely. Okay. All right. Let's move back to shit. Where did it go? All right. So this is Ted Cruz going nuts on my AUKUS. And in the interim, I'm just going to be sitting here doing like prep work. So if you have any questions for me or anything, let me know. Thank you to everyone that sent through super chats. I really appreciate it. Oh shit, that's an extra glass I did not know was on my desk. Oops.
Crisis.
Senator, there's a very significant challenge.
I think your
that we are
microphone is not
confronting.
on.
There is a very significant challenge that we are facing.
Yes or no,
at the
is
southern
there a
border.
crisis?
I believe I've addressed that question.
So you're
Senator.
refusing to answer?
Senator, there is a very significant challenge, and
Will
we
you
are
answer if there's a
therefore-
crisis?
Therefore, we are dedicating the resources.
Okay, so you're refusing
that
to answer. Well, Secretary Mayorkas, I'll tell you someone who is willing to answer, which is your and President Biden's chief of the Border Patrol in a sworn deposition in July of 2022 when asked, Would you agree, Chief Ortiz, that the southern border is currently in crisis? Answer, yes. Notice none of those wiggle words, none of that equivocation. One word, one syllable, yes. Are you
Damn, I
willing to
was just
speak with the
impressed
same
when
clarity as
he
Chief
worked at
Ortiz?
Blizzard.
Is there a crisis at our southern border? Yes or no?
Senator, I'm very proud to work alongside.
So you
and
refuse to
support-
answer. Let me ask you the next question. Has the crisis at our southern border made Americans less safe? Yes or no?
Senator, we are dedicated to the safety
Has
and
the crisis
security
made Americans less
of
safe? I don't want a discourse. It's a yes or no question.
Senator, we have a challenge of
You refuse to
immigration.
answer the question.
Not-
Mr. Secretary, let me show you how someone doing his job answers a question in a straightforward manner. Chief Ortiz, is the crisis that is currently ongoing at the southern border making the border less safe for Americans and aliens alike? Answer, yes. One word, one syllable, 3 letters.
It's a
That's
yes
how
or no
someone answers
question.
a question and does their job. You're being a politician misleading the American people. Let me give you a chance again. Will you show the same integrity Chief Ortiz shows? Is the crisis at the southern border making Americans less safe? Yes or no?
Senator, we have 260,000.
You refuse to
people
answer the
dedicated-
question. Let's move on.
And security of the
Next
American
question, Mr. Mayorkas. Has the crisis made aliens less safe? Yes or no?
Senator, we are seeking.
Well, I mean, to be fair, a chart saved someone this week, so.
So you won't answer that question either. It's a yes or no. Has it made aliens less safe?
Senator, smugglers are exploiting.
Has the
vulnerable
crisis made aliens less safe? Are you willing to answer it?
Senator, the smuggling organizations.
Okay, you're
seek to
filibustering again. Let me ask you this question. How many migrants have died under President Biden?
Senator, your phrasing of the question is actually quite misleading.
How many migrants died in 2022?
Approaching our southern border?
Yes.
Precisely why we are seeking to
So
exclude the
do
smuggling
you know the answer? Do you know how many died?
I do not.
You do not. Of course you don't. I know how many died. 853.
That is
853. And by the way, here are the numbers that have died every year. You go back to 1998, you see it's consistently between 300 and 400, 300, 400, 300, 400. Suddenly, 2021, what happens? You get in office, and that red line are dead bodies. I've been on the Rio Grande, and I've seen dead bodies floating there who've drowned because of your refusal to do your job. You don't even know how many have died. What do you say to the
That's not
Texas
very
farmers and ranchers who find pregnant ladies dead on their property, who find toddlers dead on their property? What do you say to them?
I say that is why precisely we are taking it to the smuggling organizations.
But you are not. That is simply not true.
Number two, it is why we are dedicated.
Let me read from the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal 2 weeks ago ran an article entitled, "It's like a graveyard. Record numbers of migrants are dying at the border." The story begins with this chilling line, quote, Eagle Pass, Texas. Local officials keep a refrigerated truck to hold the bodies of migrants who drown in the currents of the Rio Grande while trying to cross the border into the U.S. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record. Let me ask you a different question. How many children have been sexually assaulted by human traffickers under the Biden administration?
Senator, this is precisely why we instituted.
I don't want a lecture. It's a question. How many children have been sexually assaulted by human traffickers under your administration?
Senator, this is exactly why on January 5th we announced
Again,
the parole
do you know
program.
how many? Do you know how many children have been sexually assaulted?
This is why we.
Okay, you're going to refuse to answer that question as well. Let's move on. It's obvious you've been instructed to stonewall, so I'm not going to let you. You don't get to stonewall and filibuster. Now, one of my Democratic colleagues before said the Democrat talking point, quote, "This problem didn't start under Biden." Look, I get if you're a partisan spinner, you got to figure out something to say about the absolute catastrophe that has played out under the Biden administration. True or false, Secretary Mayorkas, 2020 was the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. Is that true or false?
It is certainly the lowest level of immigration in many, many years. And what was it in 2020? What was it, Senator, in 2020 that impacted the entire world, including the United States?
Okay, so your
What
testimony is
was-
the reason we had the lowest rate was COVID. It had nothing to do with building the wall, nothing to do with any catch and release, nothing to do with remain in Mexico. With all respect, Mr. Secretary, that answer is laughable. And in fact, if you look at illegal immigration, let's look at CBP encounters. You can see 500,000, 500,000, it drops to the lowest level, and boom, what happens? You show up. And that red line is you. That red line is Joe Biden. And you're claiming nothing happened. Oh, gosh, this was here before us. No, you made the decision to allow this to happen. Let me ask you, we now have over 5.5 million people who've entered this country illegally under Joe Biden. How many murderers have you released into America?
Senator, I'm not aware of any murderer whom we've
So you don't
released
know?
Senator, let me say something.
Do you know?
If you take a look at...
No, you don't get to give a speech. Do you know how many murderers you've released?
I'm just trying to answer your question.
How many rapists
Senator.
have you released?
Senator, I'm trying
Do you
to
know?
answer your question.
You can answer, I know or I don't know.
Senator, any individual who poses a public safety threat...
How many child
is
molesters have you
detained
released?
and removed into the United States, from the United States.
Oh, so your testimony under oath, subject to perjury, is that you have not released any murderers, rapists, or child molesters among the 5.5 million. Is that your testimony?
Mr. Chairman, may I have the opportunity
No,
to
you may not. You may answer my question.
You're not
Is
allowed.
that your testimony, yes or no?
Senator, you're not allowing me to answer your question.
I am allowing you to answer. I'm not allowing you to filibuster.
If you take a look at the pace of immigration in 2018 to 2019...
You're refusing to answer. Let's move on. Let's move on to gotaways. Gotaways are the people that get away that you know about. Now, what happened under your administration? Gotaways consistently down at this low line, boom, you get in. And they go from below 180,000 to 600,000. Now, I'll tell you this about a gotaway. You don't know, among those 600,000 a year, you have no idea how many are murderers, correct?
That is precisely why the number of
Correct?
gotaways...
Do you know how many of those are murderers?
That is precisely
So you
why...
refuse to answer the question. You know how many are rapists? Do you know how many are rapists? This is a question. You're a lawyer. You know how to answer questions. Of the 600,000, do you know how many of them were rapists?
Senator, this is why we
So again, the answer is no. Let me ask you this. Do you know how many of them are terrorists? And I don't want to, Senator, here's my lecture on this. Do you know how many of the 600,000 gotaways were terrorists? Yes or no?
Senator, we are focused on the...
You
safety
refuse
and
to answer that
security.
as well. What's the result of massive gotaways? Well, one of the results is drug overdoses. And we now have, last year, over 100,000 overdoses who died, the majority from Chinese fentanyl streaming across the border. Now, you told Senator Cornyn you care, but look what has happened under your policy. When you open up the border to the worst illegal immigration in our nation's history, people die. You claim you care.
Wrong button.
Mr. Secretary,
there we go.
That is a lie. You know, some months ago, Karine Jean-Pierre stood up at a White House briefing and said, people are not just walking across the border. Was she telling the truth?
Senator, you are...
Was she telling the
so
truth?
profoundly disrespecting...
Was she telling the truth?
22 years
Okay,
of government service.
you get to answer questions. You don't get to give speeches.
Senator, I served as a federal prosecutor.
All right, you're
for 12
refusing to
years.
answer. If you look at, she was lying, and she was not lying on her own. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. Now, the photograph people walking. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. This is a photograph from just one day along the Rio Grande of hundreds of thousands of people walking across the border. You have allowed this to happen. The photograph that was before, what are these wristbands?
I don't know what they are.
You don't know what they are. Mr. Secretary, you have just testified to the American people you're incompetent at your job, because I've been to the southern border, and if you go to the southern border, along the southern border, you see thousands of these wristbands because the illegal immigrants wear them. The drug cartels, every color corresponds to how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. You have turned these cartels into multi-billion-dollar criminal organizations, and these are modern-day leg irons because these are children being sold into sex slavery, and you don't even know what they are. That is a
See if I can save some time and download this. This is just... He's going in hard. And without lube. People are definitely walking across the border and shitting in our desert. Yeah. Alright, let's see if this makes a difference.
astonishing. Mr. Secretary, how many children have been sold into sex slavery under your administration?
Senator, we are taking it to the cartels.
How many children have been sold into sex slavery? Do you know how many children have been sold into sex slavery?
To an unprecedented degree.
Mr. Secretary, I want to say to you right now, your behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet, and if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped to follow political orders. This is a crisis, it's a disgrace, and you won't even admit this human tragedy is a crisis.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. Let me start with what I hope is a simple question. Do we need to have more or fewer people coming to our southern border?
Senator, we are working on diminishing the number of people whom we encounter at our southern border because of the challenge it presents. We're trying to build lawful, safe, and orderly pathways to accomplish that.
Okay, fewer. So we need to have fewer, which means we need to roll back incentives to come. So I would have thought that would have been the answer. Let's talk about what you're doing, though. In January.
All right, well, you guys tell me, can you deal with another half hour of buffering or not? Trusting what these people have to say is difficult for me. That's fair. Canadian woman's being vilified for calling out the Indians shitting on the beach. Oh my god. Are they at least digging a hole? Like, gonna dig me a hole, gonna dig me a hole, gonna put a nerd in it, gonna put a nerd in it, gonna take a firecracker. Wow, that's choppy as hell. I just looked up at the YouTube studios as to what's actually coming through and what's not. You wanna hear what they have to say? Okay. I wonder if I can even just... Lots of glitches on your cam buffering the video. Yeah. Let me see what I can do, whether or not I can just switch it so that it's, maybe if I can even just go audio only. How would I play that through? Because that's going to come through the secondary anyway. Some dig holes, but how would you like your kids to go play at the beach and dig that up? I wouldn't. In the slightest. I think
This year.
Feral. Oh, that was a great... That's a great screenshot right then. So... Wow, that is still paused on me scratching my... Nope, never mind, it moved. If I... Alright, let me see if turning that off makes any sort of difference or not. Doesn't look like it. Okay. Nothing I can do about it at this point. I'll just play the audio.
You rolled out a new phone app called CBP One, an app for a cell phone. I've got a picture of it behind me here. This phone app allows, and I'm going to quote from your own fact sheet, it allows, and I quote, non-citizens without appropriate documents for admission to schedule an appointment to come to the border.
No, guys, nothing you do on your end is going to make any difference to this. I'm looking and seeing what's going through YouTube's end, and even it is literally probably every 10th frame or whatever is going through. So...
They can now go on their phone and schedule a time to come to the border and then be admitted. And you identified 7 separate border points of entry where they could come. 5 of them in Texas, 2 of them in California, 1 in Arizona. It's like a concierge service for illegal immigrants. My question is, you didn't think the border crisis was bad enough that now we're going to have an app that allows illegals to schedule their appointments and come and be admitted to this country?
Senator, you're mischaracterizing the use of the application. Let me explain it to you.
Okay, so how does the application work?
Enforcing the public health order of Title 42, and I know you're very familiar with it. There is a process for individuals who claim an exception to the Title 42 expulsion authority because of an acute medical condition.
Well, let's talk about this app.
If I may finish, an urgent humanitarian reason. So instead of them coming in between the ports of entry to claim that urgent medical condition, that extraordinarily acute humanitarian cause, we allow a limited number to arrive at our ports of entry and seek the emergency relief that they need.
Schedule. You allow them. Let's be particular about
And
what
I
you
should
do.
say that the CBP One app was not unveiled for the first time on January 5th of this year.
Oh, no, but you changed it. You made it available on January 5th to the illegals themselves. You don't have to be a lawyer to use it. You don't have to be a member of a non-governmental organization. Anybody can download the app and use it on their phone. And for the first time, you allowed them to schedule appointments. Now, let's talk about what actually happens when they come to the border. It's interesting. You characterized this when you rolled it out as an application for applying for asylum. But nowhere on the app do you actually require the illegal migrants to apply for asylum or to claim asylum or anything about asylum. And in fact, when they then get to the border, you don't ask them questions, you don't do interviews, you just release them. Here's the Texas Monthly, not a notable conservative outlet, who reports, and I quote, "At no point Does the app ask users, are you seeking asylum? Those arriving for the CBP-1 appointments are given no interviews, asked no questions about vulnerabilities that they may or may not have listed in the app or about why they're coming to the United States. They're simply released into the country, end quote. So rather than building a wall, Mr. Secretary, you have built Ticketmaster for illegal immigrants.
You are, Senator, you are conflating programs. Let me explain
just respond to this. Is it true that they are given no interviews, asked no questions, and simply released into the country?
Let me explain to you what we announced on January 5th.
No, I want you to explain to me what's happening. I know what you announced. I read it to you.
So I will explain to you what is happening.
Are they given interviews? Let's start with that. Are they given interviews?
We were previously experiencing
That's starting to sound like a no. Well, let's just hone in here. Mr. Secretary, my time is very limited. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to drive to some clarity here. The Texas Monthly has reported that once illegal immigrants go on their phone and reserve their time to come to the border, once they use your concierge service that you've created for them, when they come, they are given no interviews. They are asked no questions about any vulnerabilities. They are simply released into the country. Is that happening?
Senator, you are mistaken. And if I may explain.
Are they given interviews?
If I may explain. Individuals who seek parole under our January 5th program for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans are screened and vetted before they arrive at our border.
Wait a minute. No, they go on the phone and they just reserve a time, and then they show up and they're given nothing. Listen to this. Even immigration advocates are amazed about this. Here, also from the Texas Monthly. Here's one immigration advocate whose first name is Orta. She says, that's the crazy part. Nothing in this new program requires you to actually seek asylum. Somehow, we've decided to punish those who arrive at the border without the app, who may be seeking asylum, but we just let in anybody who may or may not have any particular reason to seek asylum, so long as they've made an appointment on your Ticketmaster app. This seems crazy to me.
Senator, it's a complete mischaracterization of the program that we announced and are implementing.
Is it though?
So how many people have used the app then?
That you are referring to. So if I can explain.
How many people have used the app?
So we had a significant surge of Cubans.
How many people have used the app?
Nicaraguans and Venezuelans.
Mr. Secretary, you're here to answer my questions. How many people have used the app?
Tens of thousands have sought to make an appointment at the port of entry under our parole program.
Okay, good. How many have been admitted without an interview at the border?
You are, again, inserting a fact that does not belong in your question. So if I can, I will get to
answer the damn question.
I'm reading to you from public reports about how your own app works. You're just blanket denying. Actually, you're not quite denying it. You're saying that maybe we don't understand. Apparently, I don't understand. Texas Monthly doesn't understand. Immigration advocates don't understand. You're the only one who understands, yet you won't answer my question. How much did this cost to develop, by the way?
Senator, I don't have the cost, but let me share with you a critical
Well, will
fact.
you get it for us?
Let me share with you a critical
Will you
fact.
get us the cost of to develop this app?
Happily.
Did you contract with a tech firm to develop it?
Senator, we have seen approximately.
Did you contract with a tech firm to develop it?
We have seen an approximately
for heaven's sake.
95% decrease.
Did you contract with a tech firm to develop it? Yes or no?
Senator, this was led by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, our technical experts within the agency, and I certainly will get an answer to your question whether outside consultants.
Hey, Tim Pool's game music.
So you don't know.
Development process.
You don't know.
May I explain to you, since you have a misunderstanding of the program, what it is and the impact, the positive impact it has had on encounters of these four populations in between.
I just want to know why it is that you are allowing people to come to this border, to make appointments, to not be interviewed, and then how many have just been released? Is it true, by the way, as the Texas Monthly reports, that they're simply released into the country on official parole? And get this, they're not given, according to their reporting, any kind of follow-up. Their court dates are in immigration courts, Texas Monthly reports, not even necessarily asylum trials. They're often general deportation hearings where defendants can make...
It just occurred to me that that's not actually going to have any sort of context. Mamasaurus Rex, me too. Still debating on if it's worth to go to New York and claim to be an immigrant to get a direct deposit set up. Yeah. And yes, I thought the video was probably better than... the photo was better than nothing else, you know?
Arguments for remaining in the country. Is that true?
That is a completely mistaken understanding of how the immigration process works. That language is completely confusing and erroneous.
Well, it is confusing. What's confusing is why anybody would think that an app like this to allow illegal immigrants to literally...
No, I'm not frozen. It's just
time
the stream itself, the video is freezing because there's interruptions between me and YouTube for some reason. But at least if the audio is coming through, that's a photo. I'm not actually... The camera isn't frozen. That's actually a photo.
Order and then be ushered in without an interview, without follow-up, without tracking is stunning. It's absolutely stunning. Let me ask you in my very short time remaining something else about Chinese nationals. I've only got a minute left.
That is false.
Let me ask you about the Chinese nationals who we all saw coming over the border, busloads of them, and then being released in the American interior. What's the percentage increase of Chinese nationals who crossed the border this year, Mr. Secretary? Let's just
That's actually a headshot that I took to put on thumbnails and stuff.
focus on maybe the Rio Grande Valley
The number of Chinese nationals encountered at our southern border has increased significantly.
Do you know how much?
Over the past, I don't have the precise.
I do. It's 900% just in the Rio Grande Valley sector. Are any of these people who came in this bus, these Chinese nationals, members of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, Flux.
Senator,
there's massive issues with YouTube right at the
presents a
moment.
national security or public safety threat. We detain them during the pendency.
But that's not what I asked. I asked if they're members of the CCP.
During the pendency of their removal proceedings.
Are any of these individuals members of the CCP?
So
I think there's about 70 who came on this bus.
If indeed they are determined to be a national security threat or a threat to public safety, we detain them pending their removal proceedings.
Were any of these individuals detained, or were they released into the
I
interior of the country?
don't have.
They were released into the
awareness
wild.
of that particular group of individuals.
And so you don't know if any of them were members of the CCP? Or actually, you do know, you just won't say.
I don't know from the photograph, Senator, to whom.
But
you're
surely you
precisely
know about the folks who you've read this report. You're the Secretary of Homeland Security. You're aware of these individuals. Were any of them members of the Chinese Communist Party coming into this country?
Senator, you're providing me with a group of individuals without names, identities, or.
So you're not familiar with this incident that was widely reported on at the southern border? Don't you think it's strange that we have busloads of Chinese nationals coming across our southern border? I'm asking you from a hostile country.
And the
I'm
northern
asking you
border,
from
don't forget
members
about that.
of the Chinese Communist Party, and you don't know. Apparently, you won't say.
We are very focused on all things with respect to the People's Republic of
But you
China.
don't know any of the details. I plead exhaustion, Mr. Secretary. You have exhausted me. You have exhausted this panel. You have exhausted the patience of the American people. You should resign.
Senator Kennedy.
Damn.
Thank
Here
you,
comes
Mr. Chairman.
Kennedy.
Welcome, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Secretary, do you agree with the President that we should ban the private ownership of assault weapons in America?
Senator, I do.
What is an assault weapon?
It is, for example, an AK-47.
Can you give me a definition other than just pointing to a specific weapon? Would there be other weapons?
Yeah, give
besides
us a
an
proper definition of
AK-47
it.
You would ban?
There very well are, and I remember when I was a federal prosecutor in the Central District of California from September 25th, 1989 to, I believe it was April 2001.
And I thank you for your
all of
service, but if you
all
could
of the
answer
law
my
enforcement, the vast majority of law enforcement officers, leaders with whom I worked were greatly in support of the assault weapons ban.
Mr. Chairman, you know
because of-
why we get so frustrated with you? Because you won't give straight answers.
I think I just did.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Do you have a definition of an assault weapon?
I am confident there is a technical definition of what is an assault weapon, and it was assuredly used in the context
El
of
Paso,
the statute
Texas,
that previously existed banning assault weapons.
Oh, also, just for the record, people, it's a YouTube problem because I just checked on Rumble and it's more or less working significantly better. So,
Mr. Secretary, our southern border is not secure, is it?
Senator, I have spoken about this. I believe I've addressed this earlier in the hearing.
Why don't you
Let
address
me-
it again?
Of course. Let me share with you a few things. Number one, when I speak of the security of the border, I'm speaking of maximizing the resources we have to deliver.
although I will admit, it appears that they're about 40 minutes behind. What the hell is going on? What? Oh my God.
Deliver the most effective results.
So
And let me assure you that we are
it's
doing
secure
so.
because we're trying to secure it. Are we succeeding?
Senator, we are so focused on the security of our southern border. We are doing so much with
But you're
respect
not
to
succeeding.
the surge of
How
personnel.
you're not succeeding?
Oh, Senator, let me share with you that the challenge of migration that we are experiencing at our southern border is not exclusive to the United States. It is something that is gripping the entire
But
hemisphere.
my job is to worry about the United States.
As
Mr.
is
Chairman.
mine. As is mine.
And here's my question. Let me try to rephrase it. And I really do wish, I understand the position you're in, but you really should try to do a better job of answering the questions. Under the Biden administration, we have the most encounters. We have
Excellent.
had the
I
most
need the
encounters with
exercise.
people attempting to come into our country illegally in the history of ever. Under the Biden administration, we have had the most people entering our country illegally in the history of ever. Under the Biden administration, we have had the most gotaways at our southern border in the history of ever. Under the Biden administration, we have had the most number of people entering our country under a claim of asylum, having That
I
claim
would
turned
expect that
down
at least
and
some of their
still
stuff
not being
would
deported in the history
cause
of
the
ever.
thunder. My pet
And
goldfish,
under the
hello.
Biden administration, we've had the most fentanyl coming into our country in the history of ever. How can you possibly say the southern border is secure?
Do you know
I
that-
understand
Oh, hang on,
your
I should
answer
say
that
hello.
you're trying, but I'm not asking about your efforts. I'm asking about the results.
Well, let's talk about the results then, Senator. Do you know that
Please
last
note,
year we expelled and removed
Rumble
approximately
is
1.4 million
running
people from the southern
about
border? I
40
believe
minutes
that's the most ever.
behind
Do you realize
live,
that we are focused on
but
enforcing our laws to achieve the security of the southern
is
border?
a-
I know
that
you're
people's-
focused, Mr. Chairman, but you're, or Mr. Secretary, but you're not succeeding.
Senator, I
And when
just,
you come testify to us, you talk about how you're trying really hard. And I don't have any way to disprove that. I accept that statement in good
Amy,
faith.
happy birthday.
But the
Have a
numbers
good one.
belie that.
if I can, Senator, let me give you an example of a solution that we have delivered that for some reason is being contested. No, because it's
Mr.
caused a
Secretary, I
95.
give you 30 seconds,
It's-
okay?
it's caused a 95
Don't filibuster me.
It's
You've
caused-
been doing that all day. I'm just trying to ask
I'm just
you
trying to
questions.
communicate. It has led to approximately 95% drop in the number of encounters in between the ports of entry at our southern border of Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans
Mr. Secretary,
on January 5th. And
Mr.
why would that
Secretary.
be opposed when it is delivering
Bal, I wouldn't bother dealing with the censorship on Rumble because it has the exact same censorship list that I put on as YouTube.
precisely the result that you seek?
Did you just parachute in from another planet, Mr. Secretary? Because you're the only person in the Milky Way who believes that we're not having massive illegal immigration into America.
Senator, you're putting words into my mouth.
No, sir, I'm accurately describing the
There is
situation.
no question. There is no question that we have a very serious challenge at our southern border.
Okay,
It is a
let me-
challenge.
well,
that is
we can agree on that. Let me ask you another question. Why don't you just declare a new policy that other than children, if you present at the southern border, you claim refugee status, you claim political asylum, and you haven't claimed refugee status and political asylum at the first safe country, then you can't come in.
Senator, so first of all, when one presents at the border, it's an asylum claim. Not
Well,
a
why don't you
refugee-
do that? Why don't
not
you
a
just
refugee claim.
unilaterally declare that a safe third country policy? It would work. You can't come into America. If you're coming from Venezuela and you come through Mexico, if you didn't claim asylum in Mexico, you can't come here. You have to leave. Why don't you just do that?
Well, Senator, let me give you an example with respect to Mexico. A safe third country agreement, let's hypothetically
You
assume.
don't have to have an agreement with Mexico.
Yes, you do.
No, you
Okay. No, never mind, because Kick's doing the exact same thing. Interesting.
don't.
I believe you do,
No,
Senator.
you don't.
I'll have
Other
to.
countries don't do it. Just adopt a policy that says, except for children, because you don't want to send children back by themselves. Just adopt a new policy that if you didn't seek asylum in the first safe third country, you can't come in, period.
Senator, are you aware of the notice of proposed rulemaking that we issued, the comment period of which closed yesterday?
You've
which-
had 2 years to adopt a policy, like I just described. Why haven't you done it?
So, Senator, what we have done is that
But why haven't you done that?
we have surged enforcement resources. We have
Why haven't
developed.
you just adopted? Please, if you would, Mr. Secretary, answer my question.
It is my understanding.
Why haven't you adopted unilaterally a safe third country policy that would stop, except for children, all the folks from the Northern Triangle countries, all the folks from Venezuela, all the folks from Cuba, all the folks from the Middle East from coming into our country? Why haven't you done that?
Senator, it's my understanding that those are two things. It is my understanding that those agreements do require.
You don't have to have an agreement with anybody. It can be a policy established by the Department of Homeland Security.
Senator, I'd have to review the.
You
legal-
haven't reviewed that? You haven't considered that possibility?
Let me finish, if I may.
Sure.
I would have to review the legal underpinnings of your
Well, you
assertion.
better get reviewing.
And I also
You ought to
do
get
not-
reviewing. This is the first time that's occurred to you.
I also do not think that that is sound policy.
You don't
to
think
shut-
this is the first time that's occurred to you?
I also do not think that that is sound policy, that we should shut down our entire asylum system.
I didn't say shut down the entire asylum system. I said safe third country. All you have to do, Mr. Secretary, if you're really serious, and it's beginning, frankly, to appear that you're not, is adopt a policy that says we're not seeking anyone's agreement. We don't have to. If you're coming from another country and you come through, let's say Mexico, and you say you're seeking asylum, you have to seek it in Mexico or the other first safe third country, or you can't come in. Period. Done. End of story. Why don't you do that?
Senator, I don't think that we have the unilateral authority.
Sure you do. Other countries
Number one
do
and
it.
number two, as
Have
I've
you
mentioned.
tried sneaking into China?
As I've mentioned, I do not think that is sound policy.
Why?
Why? Why is it an issue? Why make it the US's problem? This motherfucker. Like, it's not likely to be particularly difficult to make it so that other countries, if you're seeking asylum, you shouldn't be choosing the country that you go to. You're fleeing from something. It's not, that's migration, for God's sakes.
Because you are basically shutting down our asylum system.
No, you're not. You're saying we honor your right to seek political asylum, but you're cherry picking. Do it in Mexico first. Why haven't you done that?
I think I've addressed that issue, Senator.
You don't want to do it, Mr. Secretary. That's what it's beginning to look like.
And no, you haven't addressed it.
Our borders ought to be open, and it would be more intellectually honest if you just say that.
That is false.
I don't agree with you. You have to watch up here what people do, not what they say, and everything else is just cottage cheese.
Senator, I don't think
Thank you,
I don't
Mr.
think the 1.4 million people who were expelled or removed last year would consider the border open.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, you've had millions coming into the country illegally. The most of the history of ever under your watch. And everybody knows that, apparently, except you. Either that or you're not being forthcoming with it.
We've also had the largest number of individuals expelled or removed from the southern border. And if one takes a look at the apprehension and encounter numbers, and then the removal numbers, one would have a different view.
If you do the safe third country policy, that'll solve half of your problem right there.
Thank
and
you,
you're
Senator.
not denying anybody asylum.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin my questions today, I do want to express my heartbreak at what happened yesterday in Nashville at Covenant School and Covenant Presbyterian Church. And my family and I are grieving along with the rest of the community. And I thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your call yesterday, your kind remarks today. And violence against children is just one of the most heinous crimes. And the families there at Covenant Pres and Covenant School, I just grieve for what they're going through. We have to work to protect children at school, and that means increasing security. And I have had legislation that would allow for training and hiring of veterans and former law enforcement officials to serve as school safety officers and to help protect our schools. It is time for us to pass that and to help keep our children safe. I'd like to turn to the questions that are in front of us today, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for your patience today. I want to go to this issue of human smuggling. And under this administration, the human smuggling business has gone from being a $500 million a year business to a $13 billion a year industry. And we heard from Secretary Becerra last week at our Senate Finance Committee. And we've got 85,000 unaccompanied alien children, migrant children, who have been released in the U.S. The HHS has lost track of these unaccompanied children. So my question to you is this: how many of these children are being trafficked? How many of these children are being put into the sex trade? What are you doing to try to find these children? And when you look at what is happening to women and children, do you all understand that it is the policies of this administration, what you're doing on the border, that is causing 85,000 children to be lost, can't find them, and not knowing if they're being trafficked, put in gangs, put in the sex trade? So what are you all doing to find these children, and do you understand that it is the policies that is causing this?
Senator, let me share with you what we are doing to address the scourge of human smuggling and human trafficking. And let me say, with respect to the unaccompanied children, and this will echo what I shared with Senator Ossoff just a moment ago. With respect to unaccompanied children, when we receive them at the border, it is our legal obligation to release them to the care of the Department of Health and Human Services within
That's right, and now they cannot find them.
Within 72 hours.
85,000.
And so what we do is we release
Is that
them.
an acceptable number?
Oh, absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not.
So
But- So let me share with you. So we release them. One of the reasons why we are devoting our worksite enforcement resources.
No, great success tonight. We're doing a podcast thanks to issues that YouTube and CrowdStrike are causing across the board. So enjoy.
and energies on unscrupulous employers is precisely for the reason that you identify. We must hold accountable employers who engage in child labor.
I appreciate that. Let's look at it.
With respect to the border.
Yeah, and let's look at it this way.
Two efforts we have underway. One is we are taking it to the smugglers in an unprecedented
They haven't
effort.
gotten that message.
Oh, yes, they have.
I beg to differ, because the situation, it is now a $13 billion a year business. When you go to that border, as I have done, and when you talk to women that have been trafficked and have gotten themselves out and have been raped repeatedly, there is a sexual assault epidemic
the video will be
going
choppy for you. Great
on that
success.
border. And it is because of the policies of this administration.
Senator?
And it is so...
Senator, it is because of the heinous exploitation of the smuggling organization.
And what is
that do not
incentivizing
care,
that?
That do not
That's
care.
right. That's exactly right. And you and I agree on that. They do not care about human life. They see people as a product
Yes, they are.
and a way to make a buck, because they are billion-dollar businesses. They have, and let me turn to the fentanyl epidemic, because we've all talked about this. And I'm hearing from some of my sheriffs now that from a border town sheriff, that fentanyl appeal now is down to about 5 cents, because they've teamed up with the Chinese scientists. They're making these in the labs with the cartels. And I think that you've talked a little bit about the fentanyl today, but you really don't have an estimate of how much is truly coming over that border. And we know that you're saying that they are catching about 95% of that. But what I have heard is what you're giving us is the CBP numbers. You're not giving us the numbers that are coming from air and marine operations. You're not including the Coast Guard. You're not including the DEA, and you're not including what is found by state and local law enforcement. So why won't you look at the holistic number of what everybody is finding?
Oh, Senator, the scourge of fentanyl is something that we do not in any way underestimate. Let me, if I may, share with you. As I mentioned earlier, I served as a federal prosecutor for 12 years.
Yes.
I prosecuted
No,
cocaine-
you're not answering my
No, no, if
question,
I
and I've
can.
only got 3 minutes left.
If I can.
Why are you not, why do you not include what everybody is finding? State and local law
we do.
enforcement, the
But the-
DEA, the
Oh,
Marine?
we do. Senator, the question that was
I'll
posed
pass that on to
me
Jeff.
was
Goes.
with respect to the southern border and how fentanyl is trafficked into the United States.
Okay, I
and
need
the
to
vast
move
majority
on,
of
but
it,
if you will...
vast majority of it is brought in through the ports of entry.
Seems to
No,
be a
sir,
Liberty
I
crime.
beg to differ with that. When you talk to Border Patrol and you talk...
I should specify, I've done everything that I can on my end, including lowering the output specs as far as I can. The only thing that I can't change at the moment is the frames per second, but there's nothing that I can do about that because the stream is live. I'll play around with a few things after this, but I mean, it's saying that it's got the frames per second going out. I don't understand what's going on. So...
talk to local sheriffs. I would like to get from you in writing a total number of what you are finding, not only from CBP, but also from the air and marine operations. The Coast Guard, the DEA, and state and local law enforcement. Let me move on about the gotaways, because we've had over
hang on. We may have
1.2
some
million
breaking news
migrants
here.
that have
Hang
evaded
on.
authorities and have come into the country illegally. And it is of concern to me when I hear you all try to...
A social media influencer has slapped another with a lawsuit that may change the game. Hang on. Where's this? Damn it, it showed up as a thing on my, Never mind, okay. Oh, hang on, here it is. No, that's YouTube predicting Trump's assassination attempt. Never mind, I'll keep playing this and I'll come back to it.
make illegal legal. There's an app for this, and allowing people to continue to come in illegally. Now, ICE arrested 220 illegal immigrants in 9 days that had criminal convictions of rape and murder. Now, it doesn't take rocket science to go figure out that in those 1.2 million that are unknown gotaways or known gotaways, that number that have disappeared in our country, that you've got murderers and criminals and rapists that are in that number, the gotaways. So how many of those have made it into Tennessee? How many are in our communities? How many are in our streets? Are you all tracking these, or have you lost them like the 85,000 children?
Senator, I would say two things. Number one, we are intensely focused on securing the border, as I have testified earlier, number one. And number two, I think it's very important not to paint with a broad brush individuals who come to the United States.
Well, I think it's important to note what Border Patrol is telling us. If you're intent on securing the border, then you spend $50 million a year to caretake the items, components from the border wall project that was in the previous administration. Border wall, by the way, the Border Patrol has been asking for a physical
Oh, there's like 40 seconds left of this.
barrier for decades. I think about 30 years in total. So instead of wasting that money to do nothing
funny thing is I
with the
can't,
construction
Frank Otter,
material,
because
why don't you use
I've done
those
speed tests, I've
remaining
done everything
materials
else. As
and
far
that
as I'm
$50
aware,
million
everything's up and running.
and fill in the gaps in this wall so that the Border Patrol has a physical barrier that they need?
Senator, I've approved the vast majority of the projects to close the gaps and complete the gates with respect to the funding that we received.
All right. Hopefully this will go up in a second, and then I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to close out the show, because I'm going to need to do some testing and changes and see if there's anything that I can do to fix this up. Okay, so TikToker slaps a rival content creator with lawsuit that could change the influencer game as we know it. A legal spat between two social media rivals could change the influencer game as we know it, legal experts have told The Post. No, skip the ads. I don't want people getting ads right now. A Texas woman with more than 500,000 followers has filed what would be the first of its kind lawsuit accusing another content creator of duplicating her TikTok, Instagram, and Amazon storefront posts. Sydney Nicole Gifford, 24, has claimed that Alyssa Shield, 21, copied her neutral beige and cream aesthetics and featured the same or substantially similar Amazon products promoted by Gifford, as well as mimicking her text according to Texas court records. I would say get off your high horse. This is some bullshit. The two women met in Austin in December 22 with the intent of supporting one another's businesses, Gifford said in a court paper. But the joint photo shoot in January 23, she blocked Gifford online and began to replicate her content. Okay, that's a little bit different. At least 30 photos across the platform featured identical styling, tone, camera angle, and or text, along with nearly identical videos, according to the court papers. One of the alleged copycat posts included Gifford's visit to Austin, Texas, shop the Tox in October. Another in December seemingly replicated her post featuring the best Amazon home shop purchases of 2023. Let me put it to you this way. If Shein can get away with what they're doing, not CrowdStrike outage causing this, just check some other streams and they're fine, gotta be on your end. That wouldn't explain why everything went to shit halfway through the stream. Because I have touched no buttons. Today, after Gifford's Amazon Home products plug, Shield posted a nearly identical slideshow, which was subsequently removed by TikTok, according to the complaint filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Texas. Gifford's legal team fired off cease and desist letters warning Shield to stop, court papers said. She also successfully lobbied the platform to remove the allegedly infringing posts. Gifford finally sued in April after Shield continued to mimic her posts. If successful, the lawsuit could change the influencer game as we know it, says Tiffany Ferris, a partner and chain of the trademark and advertising group at international law firm Haynes & Boone. A victory would mean a flood of similar suits, which could make it remarkably difficult for influencers to create their content, she noted. What's my download rate? Just shy of a gigabit per second. Which I've streamed with far less than that before. I never had any issues. Ferris, who was not associated with the case, said disputes between influencers are oftentimes bandied about but don't end up in court. Gifford wants a judge to bar Shield from copying her content along with unspecified damages. Ms. Gifford's goal is to protect her work from being infringed on by an imitator. Get around parody then. Show me exactly how you're going to manage that. This case is significant because it asks the court to apply long-standing principles of the law to modern-day challenges surrounding online content creation, said her lawyer, Kristen Kumar. She vigorously denies all the allegations, her attorney Jason McManus said. These are two influencers who live in the same area, being asked to promote many of the same products and storefronts. When a store asks multiple influencers to promote it, it shouldn't surprise anyone that the posts may look the same. That doesn't make it infringement or misappropriation. I don't know. They look fairly damn similar. He added things like look, feel, and vibe are not protectable, and we look forward to vindicating Miss Shield from the false accusations. So, anyway. Oh, all right, guys. I'm going to... Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's a social media influencer. I'm willing to bet that even the chick to begin with isn't actually doing anything that will be considered original. So I'm not really fussed about that. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here so I can do some testing and whatnot, because I can't do that while I'm live. But as always, people, please remember, you're not a piece of shit. You have value and you do contribute to society. And thank you to everyone that's been watching. Thank you to the 604 views so far and the 60 concurrent viewers. Thank you so much for the super chats. And as always, people... yeah, Rumble was freezing up, but it seems better now. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to play around with things. But, as always, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. Cheers, peeps.
This shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. This shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Nope. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit.